Chapter 106, Lord of the Western Sea 3. The red line drawn on the floor throughout the entire cavity. Glancing at it, Jeong said to the white-haired middle-aged man, "By any chance, is the proposal you made earlier still valid?" "Proposal? Yes. In a way, it's thanks to me that you came out of there, isn't it?" At Jeong's words, the white-haired middle-aged man twitched his lips and soon let out a vicious laugh. "Ha! You think it's thanks to you that I'm out?" "Ultimately, yes." "What a funny kid. How can your intention to satisfy your human greed be considered a favor? After being trapped for thousands of years and finally being released, for someone who has lived that long, can't you let it slide in a good mood?" At Jeong's words, the white-haired middle-aged man scoffed. To him, Jeong was at best an insect crawling on the ground. Just as humans don't have emotions towards insects, or pay special attention to them, the white-haired middle-aged man had no particular feelings about what Jeong said. However, there was something intriguing. "You're a truly peculiar kid." "What? Why do you have no fear?" "Fear?" That was the white-haired middle-aged man's question. Even before and now in this isolated situation, Jeong didn't fear him at all. Despite being in a situation where fear should well up as he could die at any moment. The white-haired middle-aged man approached with narrowed eyes and said, "Do you not fear death? Or are you under the delusion that you won't die even in this situation?" "Well, I can tell you it's not the latter." "Not the latter?" "Yes." "So you're saying you don't fear death? Everything that lives is bound to decline anyway, so what's the point of fearing it?" At Jeong's words, the white-haired middle-aged man found him peculiar. Even beings who live eternally like himself fear extinction. Yet a mortal says he doesn't fear death. At this, the white-haired middle-aged man extended his hand and said, "Is that so? Then we can test whether you truly don't fear death." The white-haired middle-aged man lightly waved his hand. At that moment, Jeong's left arm, which was floating in the air in a running posture, bent backward. His arm was completely bent beyond its range of motion. Just looking at it was horrifying. Master!" Gyusoha shouted at the sight of Jeong's bent left arm. However, the person in question, Jeong, only let out a slightly rough breath without showing any particular change in expression. At this, one of the white-haired middle-aged man's eyebrows raised. He's enduring this? No matter how strong his patience was, he thought he would at least let out a groan. But it was completely unexpected. While they were doing so, Elder Yang Muon, the keeper of the treasure vault who had been watching this sight, hurriedly tried to run somewhere. "The mechanism! The mechanism!" Yang Muon muttered. He was trying to activate the mechanism installed in the treasure vault. "I need to activate the mechanism and quickly send a signal requesting help from the main sect." He couldn't handle a supreme master of that level with his own strength. However, the mechanism installed in this treasure vault was designed to handle hundreds of intruders and even transcendent realm supreme masters. As he was about to go to the activation device of the mechanism, ugh! A chill ran down his spine, and he felt something cold seeping into his body. As a master close to the pinnacle stage of the peak realm, he had felt a cold, an invisible presence around him for a while. But what was this unpleasant sensation? Gah! Elder Yang Muon's body trembled violently as if having a seizure. Then his eyes rolled back. The blood vessels on his face bulged black as Yang Muon. A reddish blood color seeped into his rolled back eyes, and soon his face returned to normal. That was close. The one who had taken over his body was none other than Chong Ryang. Upon hearing Yang Muon's muttering, she realized the situation and possessed his body. She was aware of the mechanism installed in the main sect's treasure vault. So if the mechanism here was the same or superior to the one she knew and was activated carelessly, Jeong, who was currently captured, would be in danger. Ha! Ha! As Jeong was catching his breath, the white-haired middle-aged man said, "Seeing that you can easily endure this much, it seems better to tear it off rather than break it. This time, one of your legs. Tearing it off is up to you, But how will you get out once I'm dead? Out? Yes. From what I see, even someone as powerful as you seems unable to cross that red line. At Mok Jeongun's words, the white-haired middle-aged man silently stared at the red line drawn on the floor. Then he opened his mouth again. You're talking as if you'll open that for me. If we can come to a mutual agreement. Agreement? It sounds as if you're saying you'll make that disappear if I spare your life. Let's say that's the case. If he had the upper hand, he would have tried to gain some benefit from the deal, but the opponent was a spirit beast-level malevolent spirit who could kill him at any time. Knowing that provoking it would do no good, Mok Jeongun intended to receive the minimum price to save his life. Then the white-haired middle-aged man smirked and said, Why would someone who claims not to fear death want to save his life as a price? I have something I must do. Something you must do? There's someone I need to kill. Revenge, is it? There was no answer, but it was clearly an affirmation. At Mok Jeongun's words, the white-haired middle-aged man approached him, grabbed his chin, and lightly lifted it up. In other words, you want to prolong your life even a little for the sake of revenge. Of course, everything depends on your choice. If you want to kill me, I'll die, and if you accept my deal, I'll be able to get out of this cavity. Get out of here. The white-haired middle-aged man stared intently at Mok Jeongun. In fact, his mood was close to its peak. That was because he had been sealed inside that scroll for a staggeringly long time of thousands of years. But now he had come out of it. He had gained freedom. If he could break even that red prohibition. It's tempting. Is saving your life the only thing you want? Yes. It doesn't seem like a situation where I can ask for anything else. You're quick to understand your place. Good. The white-haired middle-aged man lightly nodded his head. Then Mok Jeongun's body, which had been floating in the air, fell to the ground. Hew! Hew! Mok Jeongun, who had fallen to the ground, grabbed his left elbow that had been bent backward. No matter how strong his endurance against pain was, it was impossible not to feel pain when a perfectly fine arm was bent in the opposite direction. For now, he bent his arm, which had been bent backward, back to its original direction. His face turned slightly red, but he still didn't show any signs of pain. It'll take time to recover. As the arm was bent, the bones near the elbow cartilage had cracked and shattered, making it impossible to move properly. Mok Jeongun looked at the line drawn on the floor. One chance. There was only one chance. Although he had proposed a deal, he had no intention of actually releasing the being. If the red line, which seemed to be a barrier, were to be lifted, there was no telling how this vicious spirit beast would come out. Therefore, Mok Jeongun inwardly recited the first incantation of the 8 shattered techniques. If he could create even a momentary gap. At that moment, Mok Jeongun's arm rose upward on its own. Then his body started moving on its own. At this, Mok Jeongun frowned and said, What are you doing? By the way, human. Is there any need for me to make such a deal with you? I can just move your body like this. The white-haired middle-aged man waved his hand, and Mok Jeongun's body moved on its own as if it had become a puppet. This is troublesome. Mok Jeongun let out a soft sigh. He himself wasn't the type to trust others easily, but it seemed this spirit beast was the same. Moreover, it didn't give him the slightest opening, as if it hadn't simply lived for thousands of years. Perhaps this time, he might have to prepare himself. Grandfather. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to take revenge. At that moment, Mok Jeongun saw Chongryong coming out of Yang Muon's body. Seeing that. At that instant, Mok Jeongun's eyes turned cold. Why did he think for a moment that he might not be able to take revenge for his grandfather? Does dying mean he can't take revenge? There were Chongryong and Green Spirit Gyusoha, who would become vengeful spirits to take revenge even after death. Was his resentment towards the one who killed his grandfather only this much? Ha! Self-anger and self-mockery. As it grew, Mok Jeongun's eyes came alive as if they were burning. Hew! Mok Jeongun drew upon the death energy within his body. Compared to the vast demonic energy of the white-haired middle-aged man, it was just a drop in the bucket, but what if he concentrated it all in one place? Like the death energy concentrated in the Dangian. The energy from the lower Dangian and middle Dangian was concentrated solely in his right hand. As all the death energy was concentrated in one place. What is this kid doing now? The white-haired middle-aged man frowned while looking at Mok Jaelnun's right hand. That was because Mok Jaelnun's right hand had somehow turned pitch black. More. The death energy concentrated and materialized into one. It took on a completely different form and color from aura. Seeing this, Jeong Ryung's eyes widened. Energy more condensed and concentrated in one place than aura. It was none other than true energy. She couldn't hide her astonishment upon seeing this. Although he had gained enlightenment about energy in the treasure vault, Mok Jaelnun was still at the peak realm. But true energy, which was only possible at the supreme transcendent realm, had been formed. What on earth was going on? What is that color? The peculiar thing was that ordinary true energy had a blue color like the stars of the Big Dipper. But the energy concentrated in Mok Jaelnun's hand had a black color, as if everything would be sucked into it. Was it a phenomenon that occurred as the death energy was concentrated? At that moment, the hand that had been bound by demonic energy was freed. At the same time, as Mok Jaelnun struck his blackened hand towards the floor, fragments flew in all directions with a loud noise. However, those fragments didn't reach the white-haired middle-aged man. As if an invisible barrier had been created, the fragments were blocked and oxidized on the spot. Then, in an instant, the white-haired middle-aged man disappeared and appeared at the entrance of the cavity where the red line was drawn. The white-haired middle-aged man extended his hand forward. Then, Mok Jaelnun's body, which had been charging forward like a spear with his black hand extended through the fragment dust, was repelled backward. Ugh! Mok Jaelnun, who had been repelled, collided with a bookshelf and knelt on one knee on the floor. Black blood flowed from the mouth of Mok Jaelnun, who had suffered internal injuries. He had concentrated all the death energy in his body into one hand to increase destructive power, but that also meant there was less energy to protect his body. I can't close the gap at all. Mok Jaelnun clicked his tongue while looking at the white-haired middle-aged man blocking the entrance. He thought it might be possible for a moment, but it didn't work. While they were doing so, the white-haired middle-aged man looked at Mok Jaelnun with interest and said, "How truly strange. I didn't realize it before, but how does a living being possess the energy of the dead like that?" The white-haired middle-aged man hadn't been able to detect this when Mok Jaelnun was circulating energy only within his body. However, when the energy was concentrated in his hand and materialized, he realized that it had little to do with the true energy that Taoists and immortals cultivated through life-nurturing techniques. Strange. Strange indeed. I'll have to examine your body. The white-haired middle-aged man made a pulling gesture towards Mok Jaelnun. Then, in Mok Jaelnun's eyes, he saw the vast demonic energy trying to grasp him in the form of a giant hand. Right at that moment, in an instant, the entire room was covered in blood. Seeing this, Mok Jaelnun's eyes trembled. The realm of ghostly intent? A space made of blood. This was Jeong Ryung's realm of ghostly intent, the blood realm. The blood surged up like a geyser and instantly trapped the white-haired middle-aged man. Behind that whirlpool of blood, Jeong Ryung was visible. Why? Mok Jaelnun looked at her with an uncomprehending expression. Why did she come in here? No matter how much she had reached the level of Jeong Ryung, she absolutely couldn't compare to a malevolent spirit at the level of a spirit beast. But why did she come in? Then she shouted at Mok Jaelnun. Run! Upon hearing this, Mok Jaelnun threw his body towards the entrance without a moment to think. He couldn't miss the opportunity she had created for him. Right at that instant, the whirlpool of blood scattered in all directions and disappeared as if oxidized. The white-haired middle-aged man had a contemptuous expression. What a foolish act! Catch! Don't underestimate me. Spirit beast. At that moment, Jeong Ryung's entire body was covered in blood, and she transformed into a human form seemingly made of blood. Then, the spiritual energy emanating from her became incomparably stronger than when she had unfolded the blood realm. It far surpassed Jeong Ryung's level. Seeing this, Gyu Soha muttered in a surprised voice. Resentment? The blood droplets floating around simultaneously rushed towards the white-haired middle-aged man. Along with that, Jeong Ryung, who had transformed into a blood incarnation, hugged the white-haired middle-aged man from behind, holding him in place. However, the white-haired middle-aged man lightly moved his hand while still bound by her. The blood droplets flying in from all directions stopped midway. Then they lost strength and fell to the ground. To this extent, Jeong Ryung's eyes, which were like blood, trembled. By detonating all her spiritual energy, she was able to exert a power close to the blue spirit level for a moment, but even that didn't work against this spirit beast. Then the white-haired middle-aged man spoke as if impressed. I thought you were an ordinary evil spirit, but your strength is far greater than most high-ranking malevolent spirits. If I take your energy, it will quench my hunger a bit. With those words, he took a deep breath. Then Jeong Ryung, who had been hugging him, writhed as if in pain. The spiritual energy was being absorbed at a tremendous speed. Despite the pain, Jeong Ryung mumbled with her lips. Go away. Mok Jionlan's eyes narrowed as he looked at this sight. Why? No matter how much of a servant spirit she was, why was she trying to sacrifice herself for him? What was the reason for trying to save him to this extent, even though he didn't move according to her will? Once she herself was extinguished, everything would be meaningless, so he couldn't understand it. Did she believe that if he survived, he would take revenge on her behalf until the end? That couldn't be. But why was she going this far? Mok Jionlan's eyes met hers as she lost strength and returned to her human form. Her eyes held complex emotions. Why did the gaze of someone sacrificing themselves for another make him feel so concerned? How annoying! Mok Jionlan, who had been smirking with his lips, shouted. It seems it would be better for you to remain trapped in here. With that cry, in an instant, Mok Jionlan thrust his hand towards his own chest. The white-haired middle-aged man couldn't hide his bewilderment at the sight of this. You bastard! He had never expected Mok Jionlan to suddenly perform an act of self-destruction by thrusting his hand into his own chest. At this, the white-haired middle-aged man pushed aside Jeong Ryung, whose spiritual energy had weakened, and ran towards Mok Jionlan. Kook! Mok Jionlan coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed backward. This crazy human bastard! This fellow had to stay alive to remove that red line and go outside. There was no way for the vengeful spirits to remove it. Therefore, the white-haired middle-aged man couldn't help but become desperate. He bent his knees, lowered his posture, approached Mok Jionlan, and grabbed his right hand to pull out the hand thrust into his chest. Right at that moment. Huh! At that instant, the palm he grabbed seemed to stick like suction, and the demonic energy was escaping at a tremendous speed. Mok Jionlan, whose mouth was covered in blood, smiled sardonically and muttered. Cough, cough. It's really hard to grab a hand. Chapter 107, Lord of the Western Sea 4. Cough, cough. It's really hard to grab a hand. Mok Jionlan, whose mouth was covered in blood, smiled sardonically and muttered. He had contemplated in an instant how to approach this being called a spirit beast. How can I approach it? The being had seen him absorbing energy. That's probably why it tried to control him in a detached state through demonic energy and attacked. In this situation, by what means could he make it approach? It was a suspicious being, so unless he drew his last breath, it would never come close. The method he came up with as a last resort was none other than this. Lucky me. This method was a kind of gamble with his life on the line. The being regarded him as an insect while also considering him the key to getting out. So he was certain that it would try to keep him alive in any way possible. And that certainty was confirmed. Demonic energy beyond imagination was being sucked in through the palm by the ritual of binding incantation. It was incomparable to fierce beasts or monstrous beasts. The concentration and vastness were beyond imagination. It was hard to believe that this was a weakened state after being sealed for thousands of years. Then, at its peak, just how powerful would it be? Jeong, whose spiritual energy had been drained and weakened, staggered and looked at Mok Jaelan with a haggard face. She always felt that he was a fellow who surpassed expectations. Who in the world would risk their life and do such a crazy thing? Only that mortal is capable of it. It was the result of combining cunning, insight, and the boldness to make it a reality. That spirit beast had to keep Mok Jaelan alive no matter what. Only then could it get out of here. This won't do. Although she had reached a perilous state by having more than 80% of her spiritual energy drained, helping Mok Jaelan now would increase the chances of survival even more. A bloody light flowed from her near-dead eyes. Right at that moment. "Stop it right now!" The white-haired middle-aged man urged Mok Jaelan. His hair, which had been flowing down alluringly, was standing on end as if his anger had reached its peak. These insect-like beings. How dare they deceive him and aim for his demonic energy? He had to detach the fellow's hand somehow. The white-haired middle-aged man nodded his head to detach Mok Jaelan's adhered hand and invoke demonic energy. However, damn it! After adhering to the human fellow, the energy wasn't being controlled properly. It seemed to be escaping too quickly. In that case. At this, the white-haired middle-aged man tried to forcefully detach Mok Jaelan's adhered wrist with his other hand. But at that very moment, the cavity transformed into a space filled with blood. This is... It was Jeong realm of ghostly intent, the blood realm. The white-haired middle-aged man turned his head and made an absurd expression. Jeong, who was on the verge of death, created a realm of ghostly intent by detonating all her remaining spiritual power. The blood that had opened the blood realm flew in like whips and seized the white-haired middle-aged man's left arm and both legs. The sticky blood whips turned tough like leather and restrained the being. "You evil spirit!" The white-haired middle-aged man, exploding with rage, tried to forcefully shake it off. The blood whips stretched due to the immense force. However, Jeong's blood realm, which was prepared even for extinction, was not to be taken lightly either. More blood transformed into whips and seized the body of the white-haired middle-aged man, who was trying to shake it off. Arg! The white-haired middle-aged man's anger reached its peak. If he had regained even 30% or 10% of his strength from before being sealed, he could have exterminated such insects with a single gesture. But now, he couldn't do that. He didn't know what this insect-like human fellow was doing, but the demonic energy within his body had become unstable and couldn't be properly controlled. Even in the midst of that, the demonic energy was continuously being drained. It had already exceeded 30% of what remained. At this rate, it might become difficult to even maintain his current form. Damn insects. It was a situation where he was caught between a rock and a hard place. If his life wasn't in danger, he could have detached his hand first, but if he did that, this weakened human fellow would draw his last breath. However, if he didn't detach from this fellow, his demonic energy would continue to be drained. If only that damn evil spirit wasn't interfering. He could stop it by tearing off the energy-absorbing arm with his other hand. But that evil spirit wasn't budging an inch, as if it was prepared for extinction. At this, the white-haired middle-aged man decided to take a bit of risk. Fine. If so... The only part he could move was the hand and arm holding Mok Jaelan. The white-haired middle-aged man lifted Mok Jaelan up. And then he struck down Mok Jaelan's head to hit the floor first. "I'll knock him out." He was about to knock Mok Jaelan out to stop the absorption of demonic energy. However, this insect, even though he slammed his head hard enough to break the floor and blood was flowing out, Mok Jaelan didn't lose consciousness. Ha! Ha! Instead, he was staring intently at him with rough breathing. That gaze was extremely irritating. How dare a being no different from an insect look at him with eyes filled with such malice? Was he looking down on him? Fine. Let's see who wins. The white-haired middle-aged man lifted Mok Jaelan up again and slammed him onto the floor. This time, he made his entire body collide. The white-haired middle-aged man slammed him down so hard that cracks appeared and the stone floor caved in. Cough! Cough! The complexion of Mok Jeong, who had been slammed onto the floor, turned pale. And blood didn't stop flowing from his mouth. His internal injuries were already severe, so naturally, his wounds worsened when he was slammed down. The white-haired middle-aged man repeatedly threw Mok Jeong onto the floor. Jeong Ryung tried to stop this by pushing herself even harder to create blood whips to restrain the white-haired middle-aged man's right arm as well, but the blood wrapping around the right arm liquefied and melted away, perhaps due to the ritual of binding incantation. Therefore, there was nothing she could do about this. Kook! For the first time, a cry of pain escaped Mok Jeong's mouth. As he continued to collide with the stone floor in a defenseless state, not only his internal organs but also his bones were breaking, and his body was being torn apart. At this point, he should have lost consciousness, but the white-haired middle-aged man looked at Mok Jeong with absurd eyes. His gaze didn't die in the slightest. With a bloody and near-dead face, he was glaring at him intensely, and for a moment, he even felt a chill down his spine. A chill down my spine? Instantly, the white-haired middle-aged man's expression distorted frighteningly like an evil spirit. Was that the emotion of fear? Did he feel such an emotion towards a mere human being no different from a lowly insect? Impossible. It can't be. Even thousands of years before being sealed, there weren't many things that made him feel fear. No, rather, those things possessed unimaginable strength. Didn't even the immortals of ancient times and those called heroes fear that golden fox and monstrous divine ray? But compared to those beings, this fellow was an insect, no, a parasite, so how did he make his spine chill? Had he become so weak after being sealed for thousands of years? The white-haired middle-aged man ground his teeth forcefully. The energy the fellow had already sucked in was close to 50%. Now it was truly perilous. At this, the white-haired middle-aged man suddenly pulled Mok Jeong, who was glaring at him, towards himself. You parasite-like insect! It's all your own doing! Then he headbutted Mok Jeong with his forehead. What kind of act was this? At that moment, something strange was captured in Mok Jeong's eyes. Something hazy suddenly flowed out from the white-haired middle-aged man's body. It was as if a spirit body? It had a form similar to a soul. But that form wasn't like the appearance of humans during their lifetime, but rather like a star with light protruding and jetting out. Then that spirit body, which was assumed to have suddenly popped out, it penetrated through Mok Jeong's forehead. Huh! The moment it penetrated, Mok Jeong threw his head back as if his head had been pierced by something sharp. Ah, no! Jeong Ryung, who saw this, shouted. Unfortunately, she saw the moment it penetrated Mok Jeong's head from behind. It was undoubtedly out-of-body experience. It was the out-of-body experience of the spirit beast. All living beings possess a spirit body, which can be called a soul, in addition to a physical body composed of molecules. After the physical body dies, the will is transferred to the spirit body, whereas in a living state, the will cannot be placed in the spirit body. However, there are occasionally beings who awaken to this and make it possible. Is it trying to possess and control the body? It seemed that the spirit beast was trying to directly possess Mok Jeong with its spirit body through out-of-body experience and interfere. I have to stop it. Jeong Ryung tried to shake and tilt the spirit beast's physical body to disrupt this. However, the white-haired middle-aged man's body didn't budge at all. Rather, it was maintaining a tense state by exerting force. How can this be? How could it simultaneously grant will to both the spirit body and physical body? It wasn't called a spirit beast that had lived for thousands of years for nothing. While they were doing so, convulsions occurred in Mok Jeong's head. Mortal! It seemed that the spirit beast's spirit body and Mok Jeong's soul had collided. Her expression darkened. She wanted to help somehow, but she had consumed so much spiritual energy that her body was becoming hazy, putting her on the verge of extinction. Holding on to the being was her limit. Ah! Could Mok Jianlan really endure this? No matter how special Mok Jianlan's constitution was, the opponent was a spirit beast that had lived for thousands of years. There is also a level to souls. That being was infinitely close to a god, so its will was on a different dimension from that of a human like Mok Jianlan. Perhaps it would be a futile resistance. And as if that prediction was precisely fitting, black blood vessels bulged on Mok Jianlan's skin, and a phenomenon of his body being dominated by possession occurred. No. This was the worst. The moment Mok Jianlan's body was seized, everything would be over. His rolled-back eyes were trembling madly, and black blood flowed from his mouth. Was it indeed impossible for human will to withstand the will of a spirit beast that had lived for thousands of years? At that moment, the blood whips she had been maintaining with all her might were severed one by one. She couldn't endure any longer as most of her spiritual power was exhausted. Now there was no hope. It was a moment so despairing that everything felt futile. Right at that moment, the black blood vessels that had been bulging all over Mok Jianlan's face began to subside. Could it be? While she was thinking that, the rolled-back eyes that had been trembling wildly soon returned to normal. At that instant, the spirit body in the form of starlight that had penetrated Mok Jianlan's forehead popped out and penetrated back into the white-haired middle-aged man's head. Then, the white-haired middle-aged man suddenly let out a scream. Aargh! What on earth was happening? While she was puzzled, the white-haired middle-aged man opened his mouth with eyes filled with tension, no fear, his arrogant expression nowhere to be seen. What in the world are you? Ha! Ha! What are you talking about? That thing inside you. Before he could finish his words, the white-haired middle-aged man suddenly made a pained expression. Then he began to writhe violently. What in the world was happening? Suddenly, the white-haired middle-aged man's skeleton began to change rapidly. What was this phenomenon? As the skeleton rapidly grew, fur even sprouted all over his face, no, his entire body. The speed was so fast that the fur seemed to tear through his clothes and cover his entire body in an instant. Even a tail sprouted. The skeleton and fur that had grown large enough to reach the ceiling of the cavity. It was becoming a form that could no longer be seen as human. As if a raccoon dog? That's right. The white-haired middle-aged man transformed into a giant raccoon dog about twice the size of a human. Was this the true identity of this spirit beast? As the body grew, the hand holding Mok Jianlan became much larger and took the form of grasping. Because of that, the hand unleashing the ritual of binding incantation felt like it would break. Ugh! The white-haired middle-aged man, no, the spirit beast that had turned into a monstrous raccoon dog, spoke in an enraged voice. You bastard! I will definitely. At that moment, the eyes of the spirit beast that had turned into a monstrous raccoon dog trembled. That was because something made of faint light was somehow filling the spirit beast's neck, arms, and legs. The spirit beast turned its head with trembling eyes. There, the scroll it had escaped from was floating in the air, and white string-like things were coming out of it, connected to the light shackles restraining the spirit beast's neck, arms, and legs. Seeing this, the spirit beast shouted in a perplexed voice. This can't be. I clearly broke the seal and came out. Before those words could even finish, in an instant, the white string-like things pulled the spirit beast that had turned into a monstrous raccoon dog at a tremendous speed, and its body began to be sucked into the scroll. No, no! In response, Mok Jianlan hurriedly withdrew the ritual of binding incantation and kicked the being with his foot. You bastard! Let's go together! The spirit beast being pulled by the white strings tried to grab Mok Jianlan's ankle, but at that moment, something grabbed Mok Jianlan's wrist and pulled him. It was none other than Jeong. The eyes of the spirit beast, who had lost Mok Jianlan in an instant, widened as if they would tear. However, it was no longer a situation where it could do anything. Aargh! With a mad scream, the spirit beast was eventually sucked into the scroll. As the spirit beast was completely sucked in, A large raccoon dog that wasn't originally there was now depicted on a cliff in the landscape painting of the scroll, howling. The scroll that had imprisoned the spirit beast fell to the ground as if it had finished its job and rolled up on its own. Seeing this, the hazy Jeong spoke with difficulty. The seal wasn't completely broken. It seems like true luck. Mortal? At that moment, her expression stiffened. The skin on Mok Jeong's wrist that she was holding onto was crumbling. When she let go, his arm fell as if it had lost strength. You! The cracks spread throughout Mok Jeong's collapsed body in an instant. Like the bare branches of winter, no, like a dying tree, the outer shell shattered and scattered. And from within that shattering shell, a new skin filled with luster was rising. Looking at this, Jeong couldn't hide her excitement and muttered, "Rebirth through transformation." Chapter 108, Fateful Luck 1. Mok Jeong's collapsed body was crumbling like tree bark. And from within that shattering shell, a new skin filled with luster was rising. Looking at this, Jeong couldn't hide her excitement and muttered, "Rebirth through transformation. Rebirth through transformation." It literally means changing the bones and shedding the womb. It's a phenomenon where the body undergoes a rapid change in response to enlightenment, and a truly strange thing had occurred. It's something that could only happen when one reaches the transformation realm. Originally, rebirth through transformation is only possible after gaining enlightenment at the wall called the end of the supreme transcendent realm, and achieving 3 flowers gathering at the crown and 5 energies paying homage to the origin. Through these 2 enlightenments, when the conception and governing vessels are opened, one becomes able to handle energy incomparable to the supreme transcendent realm, and the body undergoes a rapid reconstruction to withstand it. However, Mok Jeong had not crossed the wall. He had merely absorbed the demonic energy of the raccoon spirit beast who called itself the Lord of the Western Sea. Yet to think that rebirth through transformation occurred to withstand that energy. Strange. Strange indeed. How could such a body exist? He hadn't even crossed the wall, yet his body was reconstructed to withstand that demonic energy. One couldn't help but click their tongue in amazement. Different. The sequence of this fellow's growth process was completely different from that of ordinary martial artists. Indeed, from the beginning, he had accumulated death energy, which could be called evil energy, in his danjian, and even controlled it with a reverse energy circulation technique. Perhaps it was natural for it to be different. I might be witnessing the birth of a master with a completely different form from the martial arts world thus far. Having this thought, a smirk unknowingly escaped her lips. She wondered what it would have been like if she had accepted him as a disciple while alive, not after death. However, if she had been alive until now, she would have been a hunched old granny. As the dead skin completely peeled off, Mok Jeong raised his body. Skin dust falling off. His entire body felt light. He sensed that his body's energy was not only full but had surpassed its limits. Just a moment ago, it had been painful as if his insides were being burned by fire, but there was no more pain. Even his broken bones had all healed, as there was no abnormality in his movements. Was I lucky? This time, he had been prepared to die. But fortunately, contrary to that resolution, a fateful encounter had come, and he had become even stronger. Stronger. It was truly fascinating. The spirit beast that had been sealed for thousands of years and weakened. Just by absorbing the power of that spirit beast, his energy had increased so explosively. At this level, even a master who had reached the pinnacle stage of peak realm wouldn't be a problem. Mok Jeong suddenly recalled the words of Zhou Yuigong, the diviner. You heard there was no one. Yes. I don't know who you heard it from, but it's not entirely impossible. It's not impossible? Yes. I, too, didn't believe it at first. But it is real. Among the diviners who have received the title of God, there are 2 who have subdued spirit beasts and made them their servant spirit. 2? Yes. 2 of them. It's astonishing. I'm saying this just in case, but Azura. They are beings from outside the world. To begin with, one of them is a human and a malevolent. No. Anyway, spirit beasts have surpassed the realm that humans can handle. They are disasters themselves. Zhou Yuigong had said. He said that among the 6 divine diviners, considered the pinnacle of diviners, 2 diviners had spirit beasts as their servant spirit. Recalling this, he thought he still had a long way to go. He couldn't even handle a spirit beast that had been sealed for a long time and weakened. It was fortunate that the power of the seal still remained, otherwise he would have lost his life here. But what did that being mean by those words? He remembered the words spoken by the monstrous raccoon spirit beast when it came out of his body. What in the world is that thing inside you? What did it mean by saying there was something inside me? Mok Jiangan was puzzled. Come to think of it, most of the vengeful spirits that had tried to possess him also seemed to have a shocked reaction after discovering something. What could be inside him that even a spirit beast would say such a thing? It was puzzling. At that moment, mortal. Mok Jiangan looked at Chongryan. Ah? Mok Jiangan frowned at her hazy appearance. She had become more transparent than when she had grabbed his wrist and pulled him, and she was gradually becoming more so. Chongryan? Rebirth through transformation. This is quite interesting. Despite having learned martial arts, for only a short time, you entered the initial stage of transcendent realm, but reconstructed your body through rebirth. At this rate, you might really reach transformation realm within 2 years, as you boldly declared. Chongryan, your spiritual energy has greatly weakened. Trying to save you, I ended up like this. I didn't do it to hear words of gratitude. So you don't need to pity me. She was reciting as if making her last words while struggling to speak. It was clearly visible to Mok Jiangan's eyes as well. Her spiritual energy, which was like a blazing flame, was gradually diminishing like a dying candle. To her, Mok Jiangan asked in an uncomprehending tone. I told you not to come in, so why did you? If you die, we all die anyway, so what do you expect me to do? Chongryan answered as if hesitating for a moment. At her appearance, Mok Jiangan stared intently at her face. At this, Chongryan spoke in a burdened tone. Why are you staring at me like that? Surely you're not feeling sad that I'm being extinguished? Being extinguished? Yes. There is no more hope for me. Chongryan was somewhat aware of it. Her spiritual energy had already weakened to the point where she couldn't maintain her own spirit body. She had a vast amount of spiritual energy to live as a vengeful spirit for 100 years, but having lost most of it, how could she remain mortal? With your personality, you wouldn't grieve over the death of a servant spirit. So just listen to one request. I don't desire anything else. Just the heaven and earth society. Before Chongryan could finish her words, Mok Jiangan grabbed her hand. And he said, Let's talk about that after you recover first. What? As soon as that question ended, a majestic energy surged in from Mok Jiangan's hand. It was an energy quite different from her spiritual energy. Demonic energy? That's right. It was the demonic energy Mok Jiangan had seized from the raccoon spirit beast. Mok Jiangan had absorbed enough demonic energy to reconstruct his body, refine it into evil energy in his danjian, and still have some left over. As the demonic energy surged in, her eyes trembled. What is this? A strange thing occurred. Unlike malevolent spirits that could swallow and devour even vengeful spirits couldn't accept or absorb the demonic energy of those higher entities close to them. But the demonic energy was surging in through Mok Jiangan's palm. And that demonic energy was filling her entire body. Ah! Her spirit body, which had been becoming transparent, gradually became denser. Then, it quickly returned to its usual appearance. But it didn't end there. Mortal. Wait. You. Concentrate. The amount of demonic energy surging in exceeded the level of spiritual energy she originally possessed. This fellow. At this, Despite being a spirit body, she sat cross-legged. And as if circulating energy like when she was alive, she focused on making the incoming energy her own. How can this be? Watching this from outside the red line, green spirit Gyu-soha's eyes widened. It was clearly visible to Gyu-soha's ghostly eyes. Chong-ryong's spiritual energy was rapidly increasing, and it was trying to raise her level beyond her original limits. And eventually, it truly materialized. A chilling energy that rippled and spread around Chong-ryong. Due to that, the bookshelves around the cavity shook violently. As her level rose even higher, the spiritual energy flowing from her spirit body greatly influenced even the world with substance. Chong-ryong opened her closed eyes. A fierce bloody light that gave an even greater sense of pressure to the onlookers. Ah! Even she herself let out an exclamation as if feeling that her level had risen higher than before. At this, Mak Jaeon let go of her hand and said, "It seems I'm not the only one with good luck. What did you do? It could have been dangerous. It turned out well. At least better than being extinguished, right? You really..." She couldn't finish her words. She had been prepared for extinction, but her level as a vengeful spirit had risen. It couldn't be more ironic. To such Chong-ryong, Mak Jaeon said, "If my eyes aren't mistaken, it seems your level has risen even higher. Should I call you Indigo Spirit now?" Indigo Spirit. The basic writings of the school of Yin and Yang states the following. A vengeful spirit that has existed for more than 300 years. Its spiritual power reaches a level where it materializes beyond auditory and visual hallucinations, and it is a being close to a disaster, almost on par with high-ranking malevolent spirits such as demonic beasts. To subdue it, at least 100 diviners are required, but even that is uncertain. Should this also be called fateful luck? Mak Jaeon was still connected to Chong-ryong through the servant spirit bond. But the fact that her level had become strong enough to reach that of a blue spirit was no different from his power increasing by another level. At that moment, Chong-ryong spoke. "Forget it. Just call me Chong-ryong." "Pardon? If you keep changing it back and forth, it'll be confusing, so just call me Chong-ryong." As she spoke bluntly and turned her head away for no reason, Mak Jaeon smirked and said, "Could it be that you like the name Chong-ryong? What nonsense are you spouting?" Chong-ryong glanced at Mak Jaeon and snorted. At this, Mak Jaeon shrugged his shoulders as if to say, "If you say so." While they were doing so, someone's voice was heard. "Master." There, green spirit Gyu-soha, with both arms missing and half-transparent, was teary-eyed. Seeing such Gyu-soha, Chong-ryong narrowed her eyes and sighed, saying, "Do you have any demonic energy left? I'll be waiting, so please make sure to come and get me." Elder Yang Muon, the keeper of the treasure vault, spoke to Mak Jaeon, who was about to pass through the formation at the entrance, as if earnestly pleading. As evident from his changed tone, Gyu-soha had possessed his body. They had to take this measure because Elder Yang Muon had witnessed something and couldn't just leave it alone. However, despite verbally pleading to come and get him, Gyu-soha's expression was quite gleeful. "She's in high spirits." In high spirits indeed. Well, that's understandable. That's because Gyu-soha, who had absorbed the remaining demonic energy Mak Jaeon possessed, had astonishingly risen from a green spirit to a blue spirit. She was originally close to a blue spirit, but the high-purity demonic energy had properly acted as an uplifting force. Anyway, after entrusting this place to Gyu-soha, Mak Jaeon passed through the formation at the cavity entrance and descended the cliff. There, senior warrior Guak Munji was waiting with a bored expression, leaning against the cliff. Then, when someone tapped his back, he was startled and tried to take a defensive stance while keeping a distance, but... "Oh? You? Did you wait long?" Mak Jaeon asked with a bright smile. At his appearance, Guak Munji's expression stiffened. What in the world? Although Mak Jaeon had qualified as a provisional elder, the energy he sensed was at best only first-rate, so he had considered him a step below himself. But what was happening? "I can't sense it." He could barely sense the energy of Mok Jeong in front of his eyes. Both his presence and energy were faint. He was right in front of him, so what was going on? Could it be that he had gained some enlightenment in the treasure vault? Chapter 109, Fateful Luck 2. Gyu Soha, who had possessed Elder Yang Muwen, the keeper of the treasure vault, was diligently carrying rock fragments and cleaning. She had to erase the traces of what had happened here as much as possible. Throughout doing these chores, a smile didn't leave Gyu Soha's lips. That was because not only had her level risen, but she had also gained a body, albeit temporarily, and even had free time. Moreover, it was in this treasure vault overflowing with vast amounts of secret manuals. Although she had become a vengeful spirit, Gyu Soha was originally a martial artist at her core. Naturally, before her death, she had aimed for a high realm, so this place filled with secret manuals was no different from paradise. As Gyu Soha was organizing the small cavity where the red line was drawn, she looked at a bookshelf with only a lone wooden box placed on it, without anything else. What could it be? The wooden box was none other than the one containing the scroll that sealed the spirit beast. That wooden box said to be made from sacred spirit wood? Strangely, the box that had shattered and turned to ashes had returned to its original state. Is it truly the power of immortals? Mok Jeong, Chong Ryong, and Gyu Soha had all witnessed the sight of something already broken and decayed returning to its original state. It had occurred at the moment when Mok Jeong was pondering what to do with the scroll in his hand. As if time was being rewound, the surrounding dust gathered and formed the shape of the wooden box, returning it to its original state. It's truly fascinating. Even Gyu Soha, a vengeful spirit, found it peculiar. Should it be said to have transcended the realm of sorcery? Thanks to that, Mok Jeong, who had been contemplating what to do with it, ordered Gyu Soha to stay here for a while and guard the wooden box. I think I'll have to leave it here for a while. You won't eat it? No. It might cause trouble if I eat it. I'm joking. I know it's not a joke. The master likes to eat these things. Anyway, it seems best not to touch this for now. If anyone comes in here and tries to touch or look for the wooden box, please let me know. Yes. Master. Mok Jeong was interested in the one who had left the sealed wooden box here. Why had they left such a dangerous thing in this place? Perhaps by guarding this place as instructed by the master, she would find out whether that person with 3 eyes mentioned by the raccoon spirit beast would appear or not. It was late at night in the inner city of the Heaven and Earth Society. In the garden of a large estate located in the southwest of the city, there was a middle-aged man with a sharp impression and a small stature, standing with his hands behind his back, gazing at the moon. As he was immersed in appreciating the moon, someone's cough was heard behind him. Ahem. At this, the middle-aged man with the small stature turned around as if he knew. And he put his hands together and bowed in greeting. I am honored that Thunderbolt Fist King, one of the 5 kings, has come to this humble place. The middle-aged man with a mustache, who appeared to be in his mid-50s, had no sleeves visible on his arms, and he wore strange iron rings on his muscular arms. He was one Byung-hak, the Thunderbolt Fist King, one of the 5 kings, the highest-ranking executives of the Heaven and Earth Society. One Byung-hak also bowed with his hands together and spoke to the middle-aged man. It's been a while. Shadow Clan Master. The identity of the middle-aged man with a small stature was the Shadow Clan Master, 1. Although his position was 1 level below the 5 kings, he was one of the 3 chief masters, a high-ranking executive of the Heaven and Earth Society. Unlike other chief masters, his name was attached due to confidentiality, so everyone called him by his title, Shadow Clan Master. Oh ho ho. It's been a while since the grand meeting 2 months ago. At the Shadow Clan Master's ingratiating voice, the Thunderbolt Fist King 1 Byung-hak subtly frowned as if he wasn't used to it. That was because this man's way of speaking was never easy to adapt to, no matter how many times he heard it. It reminded him of the eunuchs in the imperial palace, and because he mixed in a tone that women would use, it sometimes even gave an unpleasant feeling. He's truly a peculiar one. Even the face he was seeing now wasn't real. It was a human skin mask. A human skin mask was a thin mask similar to skin, made using human or pig skin to create a form that was difficult to distinguish from a real human face. The Shadow Clan Master was the only one in the inner city who was allowed to wear this human skin mask. Even if he's in charge of intelligence and secrets. Was there a reason for him not to show his real face even to them? The Shadow Clan Master changed his human skin mask about every 3 months, so the only one who knew his real face was said to be the society leader. Hugh. Anyway, what was important wasn't his real face. The Thunderbolt Fist King One Byung-hak said. Shadow Clan Master. I must first apologize for rudely visiting at such a late hour. Not at all. I heard you came and went a couple of times while I was away, so how could it be you who should apologize? I should be the one feeling sorry. Thank you for saying that. Oh ho ho. Then may I ask the reason for your visit at such a late hour? Of course. In fact, since it might be a request more discourteous than visiting late at night, I brought this as a bribe and gift to the Shadow Clan Master. The Thunderbolt Fist King One Byung-hak held up a white wine bottle in one hand. At this, the Shadow Clan Master asked in puzzlement. What is that? This is firewood wine that has been aged for 25 years. Oh ho. Is that true? Firewood wine. It was one of the famous Shaoxing wines, along with Nuerhong wine, and was called a famous liquor. It was a wine that became deeper in fragrance and stronger in flavor depending on the aging period, and it was also a wine used to celebrate special occasions. The Shadow Clan Master accepted the wine bottle as if he was grateful and said, I don't know if I should receive this. Since it's a bribe I brought, of course you can accept it. I drank Nuerhong wine at my daughter's engagement ceremony, and I brought this firewood wine after much contemplation. Firewood wine was a wine that was brewed and buried when a son was born, and then taken out and enjoyed with relatives and friends on the day the son grew up and took the civil service examination, passed as a top scholar, or got married. However, the Thunderbolt Fist King One Byung-hak had no son. He had buried it along with Nuerhong wine 25 years ago before his daughter was born, so he had been wondering when to take it out and drink it. Since the Shadow Clan Master liked aged wine, he brought it here. For you to bring such a precious item that you cherished, it would be difficult to refuse the request even before hearing it. It may be discourteous, but perhaps it won't be a big request for the Shadow Clan Master. Not a big request? The Thunderbolt Fist King One Byung-hak bowed with his hands together and politely said, I know it's rude, but if there is a trainee from an esoteric realm gate at tomorrow's final ceremony of Corpse Blood Valley, I hope you can yield to me. Esoteric realm gate? That's right. It's a child I've had my eye on for a long time, so I came late at night, risking rudeness. The Thunderbolt Fist King One Byung-hak's request was just that. At the final ceremony tomorrow, the executives participating will have the right to select the trainees who passed the final gate as their subordinates. Here, One Byung-hak had already set his sights on a trainee from an esoteric realm gate. At this, the Shadow Clan Master said, We don't know the results yet, but judging from your words, that trainee seems to be a quite outstanding talent. A child with potential. Someone with the qualifications to complete the True Source Thunderbolt Fist. He already had one disciple. However, he failed to complete the final stance of the True Source Thunderbolt Fist and ended up with a crippled right arm. That's how difficult it was to even learn his unique skill. So you've been going around asking other executives who will be at Corpse Blood Valley tomorrow. In fact, the Shadow Clan Master had predicted his purpose to some extent. Due to the nature of the Shadow Sect, which dealt with intelligence and secret agents, he was always keeping an eye on the city, so he had guessed that he was going around asking for something related to tomorrow's final ceremony. And that guess was correct. I see. All right. However, he didn't reveal this. If he found out that his movements were being tracked, it would only upset the Thunderbolt Fist King's mood. I know it's a rude request, but... Not at all. After receiving such a precious wine, how could I refuse the Thunderbolt Fist King's request? Oh, so you can do that for me? Of course. Oh ho ho. At the Shadow Clan Master's ingratiating laughter, the Thunderbolt Fist King lightly bowed his head to express his gratitude. That's how much he coveted that talent. To him, the Shadow Clan Master said, "By the way, if it's not too rude, may I also make a request to the Thunderbolt Fist King on this occasion?" "A request? Actually, since there is only one right to choose, it's fine, but I'm telling you in advance in case you change your mind." "What do you mean?" "Yes. I also have one talent I covet. So I'm participating in tomorrow's final ceremony to take them as my disciple." At those words, the Thunderbolt Fist King One Byonghak nodded his head. He had expected that to be the case. The Shadow Clan Master had never participated despite having several opportunities. The fact that he was participating this time meant... Could it be that child? From the Demon Fire Hall? Yes. That's right. Ah. As expected. His prediction was correct. The Demon Fire Hall was once called the Four Great Assassin Groups. The rumor that a girl with tremendous talent from there was participating in the gates of Corpse Blood Valley had spread even among the executives. "You don't need to worry about that. I only want a boy with a physique capable of properly utilizing the Thunderbolt Fist." "Oh ho ho. Thank you for saying that. It's a relief and I'm grateful." The Shadow Clan Master clapped his hands like a woman and spoke. His voice was so androgynous that the Thunderbolt Fist King One Byonghak inwardly wondered if he might be a woman. Although her talent was outstanding, the fact that he was choosing a girl made it even more so. But he was contemplating whether he should tell him or not. That fearsome woman was also coveting the girl from the Demon Fire Hall. Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall slightly furrowed her brows. Suddenly, her right ear felt itchy, and if this wasn't Mok Jianlin's room, she would have wanted to stick her finger in and scratch it vigorously. "Your expression looks like your ear is itchy." She inwardly flinched at Mok Jianlin's words but tried her best not to show it. Anyhow, he was remarkably good at reading others' thoughts. But why did he suddenly call for her? And at such a late hour? Could it be because of the final gate tomorrow? Unless there's a special variable, there's no way someone monstrous like you would fail to pass the final gate. In the end, she asked out of curiosity, "But why did you call for me?" After agreeing to become a faithful dog or slave, she treated Mok Jianlin with the utmost respect. To her question, Mok Jianlin replied, "Ah, it's nothing much. Can you be my light sparring partner?" "Sparring partner for what?" She unknowingly swallowed her saliva. It was slightly suspicious that he had called her alone late at night when he usually didn't. Could it be that calling her in the middle of the night? "Can you spar with me?" "SP. Spar?" For a moment she let out a soft sigh. Should it be said that she was slightly relieved? Indeed, if this devilish man had seen her as a woman, he wouldn't have treated her like a faithful dog or slave after poisoning her. But what's with this sudden talk of sparring? He had already sparred with her once, so sparring would be largely meaningless. Or not. Thinking about it, it might not be so meaningless. Come to think of it, the final gate might be a pure test of martial arts, unlike the previous ones that tested survival skills and potential. In that case, using sparring to sharpen one's senses beforehand could also be a method. And I did want to get my revenge. Although she had pledged loyalty due to the poison, she had vowed to break free from it someday. And with her own righteous skills at that. Mo Harang's eyes changed as she looked at Mok Jianlin. Her eyes were already moving back and forth, searching for Mok Jianlin's weaknesses. It's different from back then. Back then, she couldn't accurately gauge Mok Jianlin's level. But now, after observing him closely several times, she had an idea of his martial arts level and what he was skilled at. She was already picturing it in her mind. To fight against Mok Jianlin, she had to avoid directly clashing with him as much as possible. Usually, when his true energy and trajectory differed, even a slight collision would cause the martial power to scatter. It was the same for her master. If I don't give him an opening, a somewhat lethal picture could be drawn. Back then, she had approached the fight with the intention of not killing Mok Jianlan, so she didn't use killing techniques or secret skills. But if she approached it with the real intention to kill, it might be possible. Your eyes are brimming with enthusiasm. Well, if that's the case, you can attack me with the intention of really killing me. What? If you subdue me, I'll give you the antidote. At Mok Jianlan's words, Amo Harang's expression changed significantly. Just a moment ago, it was merely a hypothetical situation she had envisioned, but if there was a reward at stake, the story would be different. If the linked kill and the secret sword technique of the Killing King, the flash shadow flying dagger technique, were combined, she was confident she could kill anyone at her level. Do you really mean that? Yes. I promise. If you can subdue me right now. Before Mok Jianlan's words could even finish, small daggers in the shape of hidden weapons popped out from the sleeves of her right and left arms. It was a preemptive strike. She intended to make the first move before Mok Jianlan could react and decide the match. The origin of her martial arts was assassination. Therefore, the key was to disrupt the opponent's timing rather than openly fighting against them. However, thud! Amo Harang's expression instantly stiffened. What is this? What was going on? She was certain that she had moved first as soon as he finished speaking. But somehow, Mok Jianlan's blade finger was already touching her neck. I didn't see it. Back then, she had thought that she was far superior at least in terms of speed. But now, she couldn't see Mok Jianlan's movements at all. She couldn't even perceive it, yet the tip of his finger was touching her. You're slow. Drip! At Mok Jianlan's words, a drop of cold sweat trickled down Amo Harang's fair cheek. It felt like her neck would be pierced with the slightest movement. Chapter 110, The Final Gate 1. She couldn't even perceive it, yet the tip of his finger was touching her. You're slow. Drip! At Mok Jianlan's words, a drop of cold sweat trickled down Amo Harang's fair cheek. It felt like her neck would be pierced with the slightest movement. Inwardly, she was perplexed. Although she acknowledged that Mok Jianlan possessed a strange power that differed from others, she hadn't considered it as superiority in martial arts. But what was this? He has changed. What on earth had happened overnight? Even if she excluded judging Mok Jianlan's martial arts through energy perception since it was impossible in the first place, what was going on? The sharp energy transmitted from the tip of his blade finger was almost akin to the feeling one would get from masters who had reached the realm of ascension. This feeling, it's similar to Father's, no. It was similar to what she had felt from the clan leader of the Demon Fire Hall. The only supreme master of the transcendent realm she could contend with, the clan leader of the Demon Fire Hall. That feeling emanated from Mok Jianlan. No. It can't be. Amo Harang instantly denied it. No matter how talented one was, reaching the initial stage transcendent realm at a mere 17 or 18 years old wasn't a simple feat. Even if he had gained enlightenment, how could he become so strong overnight? Could it be because he ate that? The Heavenly Earth Pill. It was an elixir made from the secret recipe of the Heaven and Earth Society, and just eating one pill could grant 10 to 15 years' worth of internal energy. The gap between 10 and 15 years was absolutely insurmountable. But can such a difference occur just from this? Amo Harang continued to be confused. Seeing her like that, Mok Jianlan was inwardly satisfied. Due to the overlapping fateful encounters in the treasure vault, he had entered the transcendent realm, but he still couldn't accurately judge his level. So he had initiated a sparring match with Amo Harang, whom he had previously fought, to confirm how much he had improved. Not bad. The gap had definitely widened, as Jeong had said. The saying that transcendent realms supreme masters and peak realm masters were incomparable realms now made sense to him. Her every movement was too clearly visible, unlike last time. You're still far, mortal. At that moment, Jeong's voice rang in his ears. You may have shed your novice shell, but even within the transcendent realm, the difference between the early, proficient, and pinnacle stages is distinct. You still have a long way to go. It should be that way. Of course, he had no intention of letting his guard down. The target of his revenge might be a peerless master at the peak of the supreme transcendent realm, close to enlightenment, so his current level was not yet satisfactory. However, apart from that, a different emotion arose. Mak Jeong had considered martial arts and sword techniques as mere tools for revenge. But upon reaching a higher realm, he developed an interest in this thing called martial arts. How much stronger could he become through martial arts? More. I want to taste more. It was a pure emotion he hadn't felt in a long time. While he was doing so, Mo Harang spoke to Mak Jeong. Did you perhaps consume the heavenly earth pill? Ah. That. Mak Jeong took out a small pouch from his bosom and showed it to her. The heavenly earth pill was inside it. Chong Ryang disliked calling it the heavenly earth pill. So in front of her, he called it the moonlight pill. I haven't eaten it yet. What? At Mak Jeong's words, Mo Harang frowned as if surprised and stared at the pouch. She had naturally assumed that Mak Jeong had consumed it. But he had become so strong in a short period without even eating it? Is he a monster? She had thought she would never be inferior in martial arts, but for some reason, she felt conflicted. Could she really escape from the clutches of this devil? Around noon the next day, in the plaza behind the dormitory of Corpse Blood Valley, several chairs were placed around the stage, and guests from the inner city were arriving one by one. Interest flickered in the eyes of Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong, who was standing on the stage. It was because an unexpected person had appeared. The Shadow Clan Master? A middle-aged man with a small stature and a sharp impression. He had been puzzled by the unfamiliar face, but upon hearing his identity, he couldn't help but be surprised. That was because the Shadow Clan Master had never participated in the final ceremony before. Considering his position and his extremely secretive nature, as well as the peculiar rumors surrounding him, Lee Jeong had been curious about him. However, he exceeds expectations. He had tried to gauge his level to some extent through energy perception, but it was difficult to accurately discern. That meant the Shadow Clan Master's martial arts were either almost on par with his own or perhaps even higher. If this was true, it was quite unexpected. Lee Jeong had gained enlightenment from the secret technique Mak Jeong had given him in the past few days, further advancing his martial arts. But if even he couldn't gauge the Shadow Clan Master's level. Ting! At that moment, a sound that pierced the eardrums. At this sound, the gazes of those who had arrived earlier turned towards the entrance of the plaza. There, a beautiful woman was lying in a seductive pose on a four-person sedan chair. At first glance, she appeared to be in her late 20s or early 30s, but the aura she exuded was extraordinary. Ting! As the string sound rang out once more, an executive sitting on a chair shook his head. That executive was none other than the Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung-hak, one of the 5 kings. It's starting again. She was a truly unpredictable woman. If it weren't for that self-centered personality of hers, she would have risen to the position of the 4th clan leader, but due to her uncontrollable nature, she couldn't enter the inner city despite receiving the title of Valley Master. In terms of skill alone, she could have become a clan leader or even higher. Ting! As the string sound rang out once more, a few of the red-belted warriors nearby frowned. It was due to the true energy infused into the sound each time she plucked the string. She, who could infuse internal energy into sound, was the Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yoryang. Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong clicked his tongue inwardly. Even that woman has come. Unlike the Shadow Clan Master, Lee Jeong knew her well. In the Orthodox sects and even in the martial arts world, there were those with unique martial arts lineages, and one of them was sound techniques. In reality, there were only a handful of people in the Central Plains martial arts world who could properly utilize sound techniques, and the Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yoryang was one of them. Ting! The Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yoryang, lying in a seductive pose on the 4-person sedan chair, plucked the string of the lute with her finger. Then, the ripple that had spread through the sound earlier grew larger. As a result, ugh! Some of the red-belted warriors with relatively weaker internal energy couldn't endure it, and covered their ears. She hasn't changed. It was truly a bad habit. She would often unexpectedly infuse sound techniques into the lute strings, making those around her uncomfortable. Even the good-natured vice clan leader had strongly warned her about it. Of course, she must have ignored that warning, as she continued this bad habit. Anyway, feeling that he couldn't just leave her be, Jeong cupped his hands and spoke loudly. It's been a while, summoning sound Valley Master. Valley Master, Valley Master, Valley Master. His voice echoed throughout the entire plaza like a reverberation. The majestic true energy contained in his voice caused interest to flicker in the eyes of the summoning sound Valley Master Hang Yoryang, who had been lying seductively. No, the executives who had arrived earlier were the same. With just this greeting, they could infer that Li Jiom's internal energy had deepened compared to before. Of course, it was the same for Hang Yoryang. She spoke as if surprised. Corpse Blood Valley leader's internal energy has deepened since the last time we met. How could that be? Your modesty is excessive. It's not modesty. Rather, upon hearing the beautiful sound of the lute strings, I feel that the summoning sound Valley Master's cultivation is deepening day by day. The power infused in the sound makes even my insides churn. Ho ho ho. Is that so? Although he spoke indirectly, his true intention was simple. The people around could suffer internal injuries, so stop infusing power into the strings and cease it. That was the meaning. She also instantly understood this, but... Ting! Then, as an apology to the Valley Master, I should play a proper tune for you. This woman really... It was truly a troublesome situation. As per custom, he had sent an invitation letter asking for her attendance, but naturally, he had assumed she wouldn't come given her personality. But she suddenly appeared and acted as she pleased according to her unique temperament, making it extremely difficult for him. At this, Li Jiom looked at the Thunderbolt Fist King Byung-hak, one of the 5 kings, seeking his help. He was asking for a higher-ranking executive to intervene. However, he saw Byung-hak sitting still, turning his head away and feigning ignorance. No matter how self-centered she was, if he, a superior executive and one of the 5 kings, stepped forward and warned her, it would be difficult for her to ignore it. But he couldn't understand why he was acting like this. I'm sorry, Corpse Blood Valley leader. In fact, Byung-hak had met her beforehand and received a confirmation that she wouldn't touch the child from an esoteric realm gate. They had things to give and take, so he couldn't bring himself to intervene. If she, with her self-centered nature, became displeased and targeted the child from the esoteric realm gate that he had his eyes on, it would become troublesome. Seeing that the Thunderbolt Fist King Byung-hak wasn't intervening, Li Jiom reluctantly looked at the Shadow Clan Master, one of the 3 chief masters, a level above him. But the Shadow Clan Master merely covered his mouth with his hand and laughed like a woman. He didn't seem to have any intention of intervening. No other choice. Li Jiom clicked his tongue inwardly. Since it had come to this, even if he became uncomfortable with her, it seemed he had no choice but to take a strong stance. Towards her, who was plucking the lute strings. Summoning Sound Valley Master. That's enough. At that moment, someone's voice was heard. At this, she, who had been plucking the lute, frowned and turned her head. The one standing there was none other than the Bright Blade King? The Bright Blade King Sun Yun, one of the 5 kings, was standing there with a large sword on his shoulder, glaring at her with a grim expression. His imposing presence, with a larger build than the average person and covered in scars, was unmatched among anyone present. The Bright Blade King has also come. The Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yoryang stopped plucking the lute and bowed with her hands together. Li Jiom inwardly welcomed Sun Yun's appearance. Sun Yun was renowned for his resolve even among the 5 kings. He disliked crossing the line and had a clear sense of likes and dislikes. He had clashed with the self-centered Hang Yoryang several times before. There were even rumors that she had nearly lost her head to the Bright Blade King Sun Yun's sword. In a way, he could be considered her natural enemy. Did I come to a place I shouldn't have? No, how could that be? Then, do it in moderation and sit in your seat. Isn't the Corpse Blood Valley leader unable to proceed with the final gate because of you? At his sharp tone, Hang Yuriang's eyes sharpened. It seemed the rumors about their poor relationship weren't false. The atmosphere had become quite cold. It was almost a touch-and-go situation. At that moment, Corpse Blood Valley leader Li Jeong stepped between the two and spoke with his hands cupped. It's an honor to have the Bright Blade King also observe. The heavy atmosphere was temporarily alleviated. The Bright Blade King Sun Yun, who had been intensely staring at Hang Yuriang, turned his head, relaxed his expression, and said, Corpse Blood Valley leader. It's been a while. It has been a while. I didn't expect the Bright Blade King to come to the final ceremony. The reason Corpse Blood Valley leader Li Jeong said this was simple. The Bright Blade King Sun Yun already had outstanding disciples. Especially in the case of his chief disciple Wu Horang, his talent was so exceptional that he was considered one of the top 5 promising successors within the Heaven and Earth Society. But for him to participate in the final ceremony was puzzling. There's a reason for that. A reason? At Li Jeong's words, the Bright Blade King Sun Yun turned his head and looked at someone among the 6 boys standing in the plaza. That someone was none other than Mok Jiangan. What? He lost to whom? Until just the day before, he had no intention of coming here. However, upon hearing that his youngest disciple Yip Yxian had not only caused a major incident but had also been defeated by someone, his mind changed. Ha! Not long ago, Mok Jiangan was just a peak realm master. Yet he had defeated Yip Yxian, who had reached the transcendent realm and had received martial arts instruction from him. He couldn't help but come here. Chapter 111, The Final Gate 2. The Bright Blade King Sun Yun remembered Mok Jiangan as clearly being at a mere third-rate level. Of course, that didn't mean he considered him insignificant. Mok Jiangan had learned the sword techniques of the Moon Vein, which had been lost 100 years ago, and also possessed innate talent in sorcery. Therefore, although Mok Jiangan was from the orthodox Yun Mok Sword Manor, Sun Yun had brought him to the Heaven and Earth Society. It was not only important to draw out the Moon Sword technique within his mind, but Mok Jiangan, who had been chosen by the secret manuals, could possibly become a talent of the Heaven and Earth Society. However, he thought all of that had been ruined due to the whim of the Heaven and Earth Society's leader. Send him to Corpse Blood Valley? It's the Society leader's order. Do you intend to disobey? But… Tisk tisk. He couldn't understand the reason. Why did the Society leader order the 2 hostages from Yun Mok Sword Manor to be sent to Corpse Blood Valley? He didn't even meet them face to face. The Bright Blade King Sun Yun abandoned any lingering attachment to Mok Jiangan because of that. Even if he had learned the Moon Sword technique, the place he was being sent to was Corpse Blood Valley. A place where more than 80% of those who enter come out as corpses. How could a mere third-rate novice survive in that place teeming with trainees possessing first-rate qualifications or higher? It's over. Would the Moon Sword technique be completely lost like this? While he was feeling disappointed yesterday, he couldn't hide his shock due to his disciple's honest report. What? Say it again. It's not that I completely lost. I let my guard down and… No! The fellow's name. Mok Jiangan. Mok Jiangan. That boy was alive? A mere third-rate fellow was sent to Corpse Blood Valley? If it had been the youngest of the Yun Mok Sword Manor hostages, Mok Yuqion, he would have understood. He had acknowledged Mok Yuqion's innate qualifications to that extent. But Mok Jiangan had survived until now. Ha! How could this happen? Master? Shut your mouth. The day before yesterday, he had received a message requesting his attendance at the final gate and final ceremony. But the fellow had not only reached the final gate but had also obtained the top disciple placard by winning against Yip Yxian in the hidden treasure vault? Even for him, who didn't bat an eye at most things, he couldn't help but be surprised by this. At this, The bright blade King Sun Yun fell into deep contemplation last night. What on earth had happened in Corpse Blood Valley? How could Mok Jeong, who was merely a third-rate, become so strong in such a short time that he could defeat his youngest disciple Yip Yxian, who had reached the transcendent realm? Various questions overlapped. However, without seeing it directly, there was no way to resolve these questions satisfactorily. Therefore, Sun Yun made a decision. Let's confirm it myself. He already had 5 outstanding disciples known as the 5 Tigers, the top talents within the Heaven and Earth Society, including his chief disciple Wu Horang. Thus, he had no desire to accept any more disciples. However, he decided to step forward to verify Mok Jeong's unusually rapid progress. If Mok Jeong demonstrates extraordinary qualifications surpassing his expectations upon seeing him, he had thoughts of accepting him as a disciple even if it meant being scolded by other executives. He was a successor who had learned the moon sword technique and survived despite being sent to Corpse Blood Valley by the society leader's whim. He couldn't miss this opportunity. Having finished his momentary recollection, the bright blade King Sun Yun looked at Mok Jeong, one of the 6 standing side by side in the plaza. Sun Yun slightly furrowed his brows. It was difficult to give a definite answer due to the distance, but based on his energy perception, Mok Jeong's level seemed to have reached the end of the first rate. What is this? Of course, even this could be considered remarkable. In a short time, he had progressed from the third rate to the end of the first rate. However, at that level, it would be difficult to defeat his youngest disciple Yip Yxian. The gap between the peak realm and transcendent realm is distinct. Even if there were 10 peak realm masters, it would be difficult to defeat a transcendent realm supreme master. But by what means did Mok Jeong defeat Yip Yxian? It was incomprehensible. What technique did he use? As he was intently staring at Mok Jeong, his eyes flickered with interest. It was because he had discovered not only Mok Jeong but also Mok Yucheon. That child also survived? It was truly surprising. As a result, both of the Yun Mok Sword Manor's hostage children had survived. Of course, he had thought that Mok Yucheon, who possessed innate martial talent unfitting for his age, might survive if he was lucky. But to think he had really survived, and even entered the top 6 while overcoming the numerous talents belonging to the Heaven and Earth Society. Yun Mok Sword Manor. It wasn't a place to be underestimated. It was really unexpected. On the other hand, seeing the changed gaze in Mok Yucheon's eyes, he was pleased. When he saw Mok Jeong, he was surprised by the advancement in his martial arts, but his expression and gaze were no different from before. In contrast, Mok Yucheon seemed to have become quite sturdy, and a murderous intent was even visible. It was as if he had shed the shell of a gentle Orthodox sect person after surviving Corpse Blood Valley. Coming here was the right choice. It had become interesting. One fellow surprised him with his tremendous progress, and the other fellow surprised him with his transformation from back then. To think the fellows from an Orthodox sect, not those from the Heaven and Earth Society, would capture his interest. It was truly a sight to behold after living a long life. It's regrettable. Mok Jeong clicked his tongue as he looked towards the front of the stage. That woman called the Summoning Sound Valley Master had appeared, and it seemed like something interesting was about to unfold, but it was thwarted midway by the appearance of the bright blade King Sun Yun. Tisk tisk. Chong Ryan clicked her tongue at Mok Jeong. There's no opponent as troublesome as a master of sound techniques. Unlike other martial arts, sound techniques take a completely different path, so there are no allies or enemies. What did that mean? While he was puzzled, she spoke as if reading Mok Jeong's thoughts. It means it's impossible to target a specific person with sound techniques. A specific person? Indeed. The concept of sound techniques itself was to infuse true energy into sound and create shock waves. However, sound isn't something that only certain people can hear or not hear. Unless one is deaf, they have no choice but to hear it in some way. He seemed to understand why Chong Ryan said those words. If that woman unleashes her sound techniques with determination, it will damage the entire surroundings. In that case, there would be an incident even before the final gate could be held. However, this made Mok Jeong curious. Why would someone learn a martial art that indiscriminately harms both allies and enemies with such a risk? If sound techniques are the only focus, it's inefficient. It might be effective against a large number of opponents, but if there are many people around, the risk is too great. But he didn't think that was all there was to it. Even he, who had only been exposed to martial arts for a short time, could think of these shortcomings, so there was no way a specialist in sound techniques would be unaware of them. Anyway, the interesting spectacle had disappeared, and an unexpected person had appeared. The Bright Blade King Sun Yun. The very person responsible for bringing him to the Heaven and Earth Society. He could see Sun Yun staring intently at him. Judging from his gaze, which didn't particularly show emotions of anger or joy, it seemed closer to trying to confirm something. Could it be that he came to see me? If that was the case, it was quite unexpected. Ah! Mok Jeong suddenly recalled the incident in the Corpse Blood Valley treasure vault. Yip Wysian, the disciple of the Bright Blade King Sun Yun. It's that fellow. He only found out his identity after fighting him. It seemed that Yip Wysian had reported to his master about Mok Jeong. Otherwise, there was no way he would appear and stare at him out of nowhere. The puzzling point here was, is he not angry? If he had come out of anger after his disciple was harmed, his gaze should have shown rage or something similar, but it didn't. In that case, it seemed there was no need for great concern. Rather, is it not time yet? Mok Jeong was waiting for someone. The one he was waiting for was none other than annihilating poisoned King Baek Saha, one of the 5 kings. According to Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong, annihilating poisoned King Baek Saha participated in the final ceremony almost every time, so there would be an opportunity. But there was no sign of him appearing yet. What if a variable arises? That would be quite troublesome. The most ideal situation right now was to pass the final gate as the top disciple and gain the right to choose. The top disciple of the final gate is granted the right to choose an executive at the final ceremony. Of course, whether they would be accepted as a disciple or subordinate depended on the executive's choice, but at least it would provide an opportunity to be close to them. However, for some reason, he had a bad feeling. If a situation arises where he doesn't come, Mok Jeong's gaze turned towards the executives sitting on chairs next to the stage. According to Lee Jeong, the middle-aged man wearing iron rings would be the Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung-hak, the one next to him would be the Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yeoriang, and the one next to her. Was he called the Shadow Clan Master? It was quite unexpected. According to Lee Jeong's words, the Shadow Clan Master and the Summoning Sound Valley Master had rarely attended the final ceremony, and given their dispositions, the probability of them not coming this time was high. But the ones who were said to be unlikely to attend had come to the final ceremony. Among the expected individuals, the only one who matched was the Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung-hak. Mok Jeong stroked his chin. The final gate was about to begin soon, but at this rate, there seemed to be no way to become the disciple of annihilating poisoned King Baek Saha. Should I go with the alternative? Mok Jeong had the benefit of obtaining 3 top disciple placards. Apart from the final gate, you can request teachings from one of the 12 elders, including the 5 kings, 3 chief masters, and 4 valley masters, who can be considered the top masters of this sect. Originally, he had intended to use this benefit to learn from one of the 5 kings who had received the title of 8 stars, known as the top masters in the Central Plains, as suggested by Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong. Chong had also agreed with this. An opportunity to receive teachings from a Transformation Realm true Grand Master won't come easily. Mok Jeong also thought there was truth to those words. Chong always told Mok Jeong, there was no need to be fixated on one thing, and one should have a broad scope of thinking. Martial arts could also provide an opportunity to broaden one's thinking by listening to the views of various masters. But I might not be able to do that. If annihilating Poison King Bek Saha doesn't show up at the final ceremony, he would have to use this benefit. Only then could he inquire about the ghost blade from him. About 2 hours passed. The only ones who appeared before the start of the final gate were Bo Hyukso, the Grand Elder of the Flame Demon clan, which was ranked 5th among the 100 martial clans of the Heaven and Earth Society, and Dae Soman, the Elder of the Scarlet Blood clan, which was ranked 7th. Among the 100 clans, the elders of the clans ranked within the top 10 were given the title of Grand Elder. Their treatment could be considered equivalent to that of a quasi-executive. No choice. Mok Jaehyun clicked his tongue as if he was disappointed. In the end, he had to choose among the Bright Blade King Sun Yun, Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung Hak, Shadow Clan Master, Summoning Sound Valley Master Heng Yuriang, Flame Demon Clan's Grand Elder Bo Hyukso, and Scarlet Blood Clan's Elder Dae Soman. Of course, this was under the assumption that he would pass the final gate as the top disciple. Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong stepped onto the stage and opened his mouth. Now that all the observers have gathered, we will commence the final gate. Lee Jeong lightly flicked his finger. Then, warriors in red belts brought a large wooden board and placed it right next to the stage. It had several lines drawn horizontally and vertically, with blanks left in various places. Seeing this, the trainee's eyes narrowed. A tournament bracket? It seemed to be a tournament bracket. If names were filled in the blank spaces, it would form a perfect tournament bracket. In other words, to clarify, this is a tournament bracket for sparring. The final gate was revealed. It was none other than sparring. Unlike the previous ones, it was the most primitive method of testing. The trainees have tested their own limits through various gates until now, and as a result, they stand here. And the final gate is now an opportunity to showcase your potential to the observers. Martial arts competition. Through this, they would have the chance to display their respective martial arts. How much they showed here would determine the range of choices available to them. Sparring. The trainees' eyes became serious. Unlike before, they had to prove their skills in front of the executives. It was only natural for them to feel nervous and have exceptional motivation. However, there was one problem here. The number doesn't match. The number of trainees was 6. If they were to have matches, 8 would be the most ideal number. That way, 8 would compete, then 4, and then 2, allowing them to determine the final winner. But since there were 6, inevitably. Advancement without a match. Advancement without a match. In other words, 2 people could reach the final match with just 1 bout. At that moment, the senior warrior Guak Munjiai went to the tournament bracket and began writing numbers. Among them, the ones who drew 5 and 6 could reach the final match with just 1 bout. Then, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong pointed to a table placed in front of the stage. On it was a wooden box with circular holes on top. As you can see, since the number doesn't match, we will draw lots to determine the tournament bracket. Suk. Then, someone raised their hand. It was Yun Muang from the Esoteric Realm Gate. Unlike the previous gates, this was the final gate, and the executives were watching, so he stepped forward without hesitation. May I ask one question? Speak. Those who advance without a match and those who advance after 2 bouts will be at a disadvantage in terms of stamina and everything else. Will it be valid? Everyone nodded in agreement with these words. Then, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong smirked and soon spoke. Naturally, it will be difficult for those who have to fight 2 bouts to manage their stamina, so they will certainly be given sufficient time to circulate energy and recover. And the final match to determine the winner will only be a contest of techniques without internal energy. Yun Muang from the Esoteric Realm Gate lowered his hand, seemingly somewhat convinced by his words. If they were to suffer injuries, the story would be different, but it seemed like an attempt to eliminate the disadvantageous conditions to some extent. At this time, Mok Jaehyun muttered softly. Couldn't we all just fight at once? Tisk tisk. At these words, Mok Yucheon, who was right next to him, openly clicked his tongue. If that were to happen, who would everyone here consider as the first target to deal with? It would be none other than Mok Jaehyun. In a group match, they would try to eliminate the most dangerous opponent first, so it wouldn't be a fair match. Of course, Mok Yucheon still didn't know the fact that 2 out of the 6 were Mok Jaelan's subordinates. Then, Corpse Blood Valley leader Lee Jeong continued speaking. Now, the trainees will come forward in order and draw the metal balls inside the wooden box. The time for the drawing had come. The first opportunity to choose was given to those who had the lowest scores in the previous gate. They were Mok Yucheon and Yun Muang from the Esoteric Realm Gate. Perhaps because he was afraid of being told he had the lowest score if he went first, Yun Muang didn't step forward right away. So Mok Yucheon was the first to draw a metal ball from inside the wooden box. Mok Yucheon's number was 6. At these words, Yun Muang from the Esoteric Realm Gate showed a slightly disappointed expression. No matter how fair they tried to make it, the advantage of being able to fight for the championship with just one match as 5 and 6 was inevitable. Ha! Mok Yucheon looked at the 6 he had drawn and scoffed. Should this be considered good luck? While he was doing that, Yun Muang drew a number tag. It was 4. Unfortunately, the advancement without a match had flown away. It was disappointing, but there was no other choice. Next, Mo Harang from the Demon Fire Hall came forward and drew a metal ball. 3. At those words, the corners of Yun Muang's mouth twitched. She was an opponent he had wanted to face at least once, as they had always been compared in this Corpse Blood Valley Gate. Next, Mu Jangyak walked forward. Mu Jangyak didn't mind either way. After all, while winning was important in this gate, it was also an opportunity to showcase one's talent to the observers. Tack. 1. The number Mu Jangyak drew was 1. Next, Yong-jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave walked forward. The demonic monk possessing Yong-jie had no particular thoughts about this drawing, so he expressionlessly put his hand in and drew a metal ball. The number was 5. At those words, the expressions of 2 people changed. Mok Yucheon, who already thought he owed a debt to Yong-jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, showed a delighted expression as Yong-jie became his opponent in the bracket. And the other person was none other than Mu Jangyak. Naturally, without even drawing lots, he sighed as he looked at Mok Jaelan, who had become his opponent. It ended up like this. He had thought the day would come when he would directly face Mok Jaelan. But it had already arrived. The first match against the most difficult opponent. Mu Jangyak shook his head back and forth. The person he had considered as someone who would be troublesome if he became an enemy among his peers was none other than Mok Jaelan. But to think they would face each other like this. Quack! His fists naturally clenched. It wasn't particularly out of fear. He didn't think he would lose right away. He had a secret technique that no one could defeat, after all. This elevated sensation was simply overconfidence. Mu Jangyak approached Mok Jaelan and spoke while extending his hand. We ended up facing each other like this. Regardless of who wins, let's do our best. At these words, Mok Jaelan grabbed his hand and spoke as if it was troublesome. That seems difficult. What? If I do my best, the match will become too boring, so I'll go easy on you. So you do your best. What nonsense was this guy spouting? Was he provoking him now? Chapter 112, The Final Gate 3. As Yong-jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave drew 5, Mok Jaelan naturally became 2. Mu Jangyak, who was confident in winning despite drawing the most troublesome opponent, extended his hand to Mok Jaelan and said, We ended up facing each other like this. Regardless of who wins, let's do our best. At these words, Mok Jaelan grabbed his hand and spoke as if it was troublesome. That seems difficult. What? If I do my best, the match will become too boring, so I'll go easy on you. So you do your best. Mu Jangyak always had a relaxed demeanor, but at this moment, one of his eyebrows twitched, revealing his emotions. Was Mok Jaelan provoking him now? Mu Jangyak looked straight into Mok Jaelan's eyes. Unlike his own heightened state, Mok Jaelan's eyes showed no particular emotion. Seeing this, Mu Zhengyak calmed his briefly surging emotions and regained his composure. Has it already started? It was undoubtedly a clear provocation. The fellow was as good at strategy as he was, if not better. Perhaps he was trying to unsettle him before the match to gain an advantageous position. At this, Mu Zhengyak spoke with a smile. I'm grateful that you're going easy on me. I was already at an advantage, but if that's the case, I'll have an overwhelming advantage. Are you not interested in the top disciple position in the final gate? This was an eye for an eye. Mu Zhengyak also deliberately provoked Mok Jianan. However, Mok Jianan showed no particular reaction to Mu Zhengyak's provocation. Rather, he smirked and turned his head away. Seeing this, Mu Zhengyak clicked his tongue inwardly. Since childhood, he had often been told that he was as cunning as he was talented in martial arts. So he was confident that he wouldn't lose to anyone in a battle of wits or arguments, but strangely, whenever he had a conversation with this fellow, he felt like he was being swayed. No need to fall for the provocation. The outcome would be decided in the match anyway. He also intended to ignore it and move on. However, "Hey! Mok Jianan!" Mu Zhengyak called out to Mok Jianan while looking ahead. After calling out, Mu Zhengyak inwardly regretted his actions, but since he had already called out, he thought it couldn't be helped. "Why are you doing this?" At Mok Jianan's question, Mu Zhengyak said, "Since we're having a match, how about we make a bet?" "A bet?" "Yeah. Why should I do that?" Mok Jianan spoke in a tone as if he didn't understand. At this, Mu Zhengyak smirked and replied, "You don't have to do it if you're not confident." "Confidence?" "Yeah. I thought it would be more interesting to have a bet rather than just a match, but if you're not confident, there's no need to do it." It was a clear provocation. He could have just let it slide, but Mu Zhengyak, who thought he should clarify this relationship in this match, tried to draw Mok Jianan into a bet. Mok Jianan stroked his chin and then smirked, saying, "What kind of bet do you want to make?" At these words, Mu Zhengyak inwardly cheered, although he didn't show it, thinking that Mok Jianan had fallen for his provocation. Since the opponent had fallen for his provocation, all that was left was to set the stakes. Mu Zhengyak used his brain in an instant. Although he had suggested a bet to provoke him, he didn't want to create a situation where the opponent would resent or be angry even if they lost. So the idea he came up with was, "How about the loser of the match calling the winner Big Brother?" "Big Brother?" "Yeah. Isn't it about clearly establishing a hierarchy between us?" "Hierarchy. It's not a bad bet, right? No matter how much of a competition it is, we're not mortal enemies or enemies that need to be killed, so there's no need to raise the stakes of the bet." It was enough to create a sense of urgency that he had to win. At his words, Mok Jianan let out a soft groan and said, That's a rather boring bet." "It's boring?" "Yes. Is there even a need to make a bet with such a thing? Did he fall for it or not?" Mu Zhengyak asked in puzzlement. "Then what do you think is an interesting bet?" "Well, how about the loser of the match becoming the faithful dog of the winner?" "What?" At Mok Jianan's words, Mu Zhengyak's expression stiffened. He had mentioned the bet at a level where both of them wouldn't feel too offended in case of any eventuality, but the fellow went a step further. Becoming a faithful dog basically meant crawling under him. He's not just good at provocation but excessive. He was someone who usually laughed off and let go of most things, but this time, it was difficult to laugh. He was the one who first proposed the bet. But if he were to avoid it now that the stakes of the bet had been raised, he would look ridiculous. Mu Zhengyak slightly turned his head and looked at Mok Jianan. "Is he that confident? Or is he going to provoke me until the end?" It didn't matter either way. The latter was definitely effective. From the moment he suggested making a bet to determine who would be the elder or younger brother, he had already been caught in the fellow's provocation. Mu Zhengyak clenched his fist as if he had made up his mind and said, "Are you sure you won't regret it? That's what I want to ask you. You're really something." I've never been caught by anyone in an argument, or something like this. Fine. Let's do it. The bet about becoming a faithful dog if you lose. It would be fine as long as he won. Although Mok Jeong had a special power, this was a match where martial arts would be compared. He was confident that no one could match him if it was solely based on martial arts. Because he had that. And so, the two trainees belonging to the first bracket of the final gate walked to the center of the plaza, faced each other, and stretched their bodies. They were Mok Jeong and Mu Jang-yak. The observers sitting next to the stage in the plaza had various expressions on their faces. Among them, the bright blade king Sun Yun, who had come to confirm Mok Jeong's martial arts skills, was surprised by something unexpected. Sun Yun gestured for one of the red-belted warriors to come and asked, "What was that child's name again?" "It's Mu Jang-yak." "Mu Jang-yak? Do you know which martial clan he's from?" "He seems to be from a small to medium-sized faction under our sect, but I don't know much else." At the warrior's words, Sun Yun's eyes narrowed. Such a child was from a small to medium-sized faction that wasn't well known? At that moment, the Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung-hak, who was sitting right next to the bright blade King Sun Yun, also spoke in a surprised tone. "This is surprising. Was there such a child?" "You noticed it too, my lord?" The energy emanating from Mu Jang-yak as he was stretching his body. They sensed it through their energy perception. That child has reached the pinnacle stage of peak realm. For a trainee who was only 17 or 18 years old to have reached the pinnacle stage of peak realm. If their energy perception wasn't wrong, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the most outstanding among those six. It was truly unexpected. For such an outstanding martial talent to emerge from a small to medium-sized faction. The opponent is unfavorable. After looking at Mu Jang-yak like this, the bright blade King Sun Yun, who turned his gaze to Mok Jeong, clicked his tongue inwardly. He had wanted to confirm the extent of Mok Jeong's skills, who had defeated his disciple Yip Ysean, but the opponent was too bad. Of all people, he had to face such a monstrous fellow. If he hasn't prepared anything, it might end uneventfully. It was difficult to judge everything based solely on energy perception, but there was too much of a difference in the energy emanating from them. No matter how much Mok Jeong had honed his energy, it seemed difficult for him to be a match. On the other hand, the Thunderbolt Fist King Won Byung-hak, who had no particular interest in Mok Jeong from the beginning, clicked his tongue while looking at Mu Jang-yak. Was I too hasty? He had come with the sole purpose of bringing the child from the esoteric realm gate. So he had already reached an agreement with a few of the observers beforehand. But to think there was such a talent. Although he tried not to show it, he felt regretful. I can't back out now. One Byung-hak glanced at the other executives. The Shadow Clan Master and the Summoning Sound Valley Master Heng Yuriang were sitting side by side, separated from them on the left side. The two of them also seemed to be having a conversation while looking at Mu Jang-yak. Heng Yuriang spoke to the Shadow Clan Master in an interested tone. I came to take a girl, but there's a not-so-bad boy among the boys. A girl? Could it be that you've set your eyes on the child from the Demon Fire Hall? Ho ho ho. I heard she's a promising talent. This is quite troubling. I also came to Corpse Blood Valley after a long time because I was attracted to the child from the Demon Fire Hall. Oh my. Is that so? We have overlapping interests. It turned out that way unintentionally. Oh ho ho. The Shadow Clan Master laughed like a woman, covering his mouth. Following the Shadow Clan Master, the Summoning Sound Valley Master Heng Yuriang also laughed, giggling. They were both laughing, but for some reason, it sounded like they were having a battle of wits. Then, Heng Yuriang pointed at Mu Jang-yak and said, Clan leader, why don't you take that child instead? In terms of talent, he seems to be the best among this class. Well, the Shadow Clan Master showed a contemplative expression while stroking his chin. At this, the Summoning Sound Valley Master Heng Yuriang spoke in a tone as if she couldn't understand. Is there a reason to hesitate? Could it be that you're worried about the Thunderbolt Fist King and the Bright Blade King snatching him away? Oh ho ho. That's one reason, but my eyes are drawn to that child. That child? At the Shadow Clan Master's words, the Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yuriang looked at Mok Jianlan, who was lightly stretching his body on the opposite side of Mu Jangyak. Although they were far apart, she was quite surprised by his handsome face. However, that was all. Based on energy perception, he seemed to be only at the first-rate level. At that age, being first-rate wasn't weak, but it was definitely not a level worth coveting as a disciple. At this, she said, "His appearance is quite pleasing, but that's all. Surely you're not interested in him because of his appearance, are you? Oh ho ho. As they say, beauty is the icing on the cake, so it's good if the appearance is outstanding as well. If that's all, it's meaningless. Since he has come this far, wouldn't he have a hidden technique or two? Well, that could be possible. In the martial world, secret techniques and hidden skills existed. However, the opponent was too strong. Based on energy perception alone, that child named Mu Jangyak had the potential to reach the initial stage transcendent realm at any time as long as he was supported by enlightenment. Although she had originally set her sights on Moharang, he was desirable to the point of coveting. Then, Hang Yuriang spoke as if it was for amusement. Then, Shadow Clan Master, shall we have a light bet? A bet? Yes. From what I hear, it seems you see potential in that child as well, so let's bet that the match will be decided within 3 moves. Of course, the winner will be that child named Mu Jangyak. What are the conditions of the bet? How about betting the ownership of that girl? So that was your objective, Valley Master. Ho ho ho. You caught me. Hang Yuriang preferred girls over boys. Since they both wanted the same thing, she proposed a bet to resolve it amicably. At this, the Shadow Clan Master smiled and said, "Not a bad idea. But since anyone can see the clear gap between those 2 children if we bet on the outcome, let's do it this way." What do you mean by this way? I will bet that the match won't be decided within 3 moves. At the Shadow Clan Master's words, the Summoning Sound Valley Master Hang Yuriang twitched her lips and then nodded. You won't go back on your word, right? Oh ho ho. A man's word is as good as 1,000 gold pieces. It seemed like a phrase that didn't suit him, but it didn't matter. Hang Yuriang was confident that the match could be decided in just 1 move, let alone 3. The gap between the pinnacle stage of peak realm and a first-rate realm was too large. It might not even take 1 move, but if done well, the outcome could be determined in just 1 move. Corpse Blood Valley leader Jeong, who was on the stage, raised his hand and shouted, "Now, exchange greetings with each other." At this, Mok Jiangan and Mu Jangyak, who had been stretching their bodies, looked at each other and cupped their hands together in a salute. As it was a match, they were told to exchange greetings as a sign of mutual respect. While saluting, Mu Jangyak glanced at someone next to the stage. The Thunderbolt Fist King. He was the one Mu Jangyak wanted to have as his master. The Thunderbolt Fist King was one of the top 3 masters in the Heaven and Earth Society when it came to barehanded techniques. His family was skilled in leg techniques and fist techniques, so Mu Jangyak wanted to become his disciple and reach an even higher level. To make that happen as he wished, he had to become the top disciple in the final gate. Mu Jangyak turned his gaze and looked at Mok Jianlan. Although he seemed to be only at the first-rate level based on appearance, after observing him several times, Mok Jianlan was estimated to be at peak realm. He didn't know how he had concealed his martial arts, but he definitely wasn't first-rate. Mu Jangyak steeled his resolve while looking at Mok Jianlan. Establish a clear superiority. For the sake of the bet, he absolutely couldn't lose. Mu Jangyak began to rapidly circulate the internal energy from his danjian throughout his body. It was to decide the match early on, along with the signal from the Corpse Blood Valley leader. Absolutely no carelessness. From the start, he would use his full strength to break the fellow's will and achieve victory. While they were doing so, Corpse Blood Valley leader Jeong lowered his raised hand and shouted loudly, "Begin!" As soon as Li Jiom's signal fell, pat! Mu Jangyak, who had been preparing by circulating energy throughout his body, kicked off the ground and launched himself towards Mok Jianan. Fast! Mok Yuchion, who was watching this, exclaimed in admiration. He had guessed that Mu Jangyak would be strong, but his current movement exceeded expectations. Indeed, he seemed to have reached the pinnacle stage of peak realm. Flowing water stirs chaos. 1. Papapapapak. Mu Jangyak, who had charged in front of Mok Jianan in an instant, unleashed a palm technique. The elegant palm strikes, like gentle ripples, beautifully weaved a pattern, targeting the vital points on Mok Jianan's upper body. How will you respond? Mu Jangyak thought as he glared at Mok Jianan. Even if they had reached the same peak realm, those who had reached the peak were completely different in terms of strength and speed. Tack! At that moment, Mok Jianan moved back about half a step. Then, swish! 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 Mu Jangyak's eyes narrowed. Mok Jianan secured a distance of half a step and flexibly moved his upper body, dodging all the palm strikes. To easily evade the flowing water swaying disorder, where it was difficult to distinguish between false and true strikes. It was an unexpected response. Oh my! The Thunderbolt Fist King One Bionhack, who was watching their confrontation from beside the stage, couldn't hide his astonishment. Mok Jianan's movement was not at all that of a first-rate martial artist. To dodge techniques in such a manner, one had to be at a somewhat equal level. Did he conceal his martial arts? He had thought the match would end blandly. However, with the movement Mok Jianan had shown now, it became difficult to predict the outcome. As expected, the Bright Blade King Sun Yun was also intently watching Mok Jianan's movement. He had thought there would be a hidden technique, and indeed, Mok Jianan was showing movements that surpassed the first-rate level. If it was to that extent, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he had reached the proficient stage of the peak realm, or was close to the pinnacle stage of peak realm. Can he conceal his energy? Even he, who had reached the transcendent realm, couldn't accurately assess Mok Jianan's martial arts. It meant one of two things. Either Mok Jianan was a peerless master far superior to himself, or he had a special technique to conceal his energy. However, the former was impossible based on common sense, so the latter was more likely. No wonder that child was pushed back. Mok Jianan's current movement was a step above Yip Yxian. It could be confirmed just by seeing how he dodged the techniques. With this, it became difficult to predict who would win between the two of them. Papapapak. An opening. Mok Jianan, who had dodged all the palm techniques, stepped forward and threw a punch, aiming for Mu Jangyak's face. In response, Mu Jangyak leaped back to avoid the punch, and at the same time, he kicked off the ground and raised his foot towards Mok Jianan's chin. Pack! Mok Jianan blocked Mu Jangyak's instep and simultaneously tried to grab it. However, swish! Mu Jangyak twisted his body and kicked Mok Jianan's shoulder with his foot. Bam! Shwa! Mok Jianan's body was pushed back about 5 steps. Landing on the ground and seeing this, the corners of Mu Jangyak's mouth slightly rose. He was now certain about this. Mok Jianan's internal energy was weaker than his own. In that case, let's decide the match. Pat! Mu Jangyak kicked off the ground and unleashed a fist technique with his right hand towards the pushed-back Mok Jianan. Accumulating fists, dancing to completion too. As the fists overlapped, they flew in with several false strikes, swaying like a butterfly. Seeing this, Mok Jianan tried to increase the distance by using footwork. However, Mu Jangyak's fist technique, like the 100 Steps Divine Fist of Shaolin, imbued with energy, pierced through the air as much as the distance widened and charged forward. I have no choice but to block. There was no other way. He had to use his hands. Mok Jianan raised his energy and extended his palm to block the fist technique. But at that moment, bam! From an angle he had never imagined, Mu Jangyak's palm strike pierced Mok Jianan's right rib cage. Huh! Mok Jiangnan's body bent sideways to the right. Along with that, Mu Zhengyak's accumulating fists, dancing to completion's fist technique, struck his chest. Bam! 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 Consecutive strikes were delivered, and Mok Jiangnan's body was pushed back more than 10 steps. Shwa! Ha! Exclamations of admiration flowed from various parts of the spectator seats. That was because the technique Mu Zhengyak had shown just now was something no one had expected. Even the bright blade King Sun Yun muttered in amazement. Right fist, left palm, 3. With his right hand, he unleashed a fist technique, and with his Chapter 113, The Final Gate 4. At the moment when Mok Jianlan was pushed back, his ribs and chest were struck by Mu Zhengyak's secret technique. Swoosh! Ha! In an instant, exclamations of astonishment erupted from the spectators' seats beside the platform where the duel was being observed. And they were not alone. Even the other cadets waiting for their turn to duel couldn't help but be amazed by the scene unfolding before their eyes. So this is what it meant. Mok Yucheon clicked his tongue as he watched Mok Jianlan being pushed back. He had only one chance to gauge Mu Zhengyak's martial prowess, and that moment came to mind. Are you perhaps left-handed? Who knows? At the time, he had been puzzled by that ambiguous response for a moment before forgetting about it. However, after witnessing the right fist, left palm technique, each employing different techniques, it made sense. This was not a method anyone could casually attempt. Impressive. Mok Yucheon was genuinely amazed. If one could wield different martial arts with each hand, it meant they could perform the work of 2 people alone. Since it wasn't being executed by 2 individuals in the first place, it could become even more precise. Of course, the very act of pulling it off was difficult, as it required splitting one's thoughts. In any case, witnessing this aspect of Mu Zhengyak's potential, Mok Yucheon's heart raced with excitement, even giving him goosebumps. Thump! 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 Indeed, the world was vast. To think such a monster existed among his peers. I was nothing more than a frog in a well, after all. Coming here and having his eyes open didn't mean he could afford to be complacent. Mok Yucheon clicked his tongue as he looked at Mok Jianlan. It seemed he had truly met his match. It's futile. Even if he had mastered a unique technique, this duel was meant to demonstrate one's martial prowess, plain and simple. The reason for his sudden improvement remained unknown, but the opponent was too formidable. Mu Zhengyak could genuinely be called a true genius. Bam! Now, it appeared Mu Zhengyak was about to end it. As he unleashed his right fist, left palm technique, even Mok Yucheon felt at a loss as to how he would counter it if he were in Mok Jianlan's place. At the moment, other than creating distance, Mok Yucheon's eyes widened in that instant. Pow! He was so astonished that he sprang up from his seat. This is insane. For a moment, he doubted his own eyes. Mok Jianlan was employing different martial arts techniques with each hand, just like Mu Zhengyak. With his right hand, he executed sword techniques, and with his left hand, he wielded fist techniques. Is this possible? He wasn't just clumsily imitating, he was genuinely displaying proper techniques. Mok Yucheon couldn't help but be shocked by this sight. He was confident that the bizarre method of using different techniques with each hand, like Mu Zhengyak, couldn't be easily replicated even by supreme masters, so what on earth was happening? It can't be. Even seeing it, he couldn't believe it. How could one imitate it after seeing it just once? He wasn't the only one surprised. Ha! Hang Yuriang of the Summoning Sound Valley let out an astonished gasp, her eyes narrowing. She had already judged that the outcome was completely tilted in Mu Zhengyak's favor upon witnessing his right fist, left palm technique. However, something entirely unexpected had occurred. He's imitating that? Wielding different martial arts techniques with each hand. It was a method that, contrary to the idea, was difficult to execute in practice. If it were easy, countless martial artists would already be employing different martial arts with each hand. The true genius was someone else, I see. She had considered Mu Zhangyak a rarely seen genius after witnessing his right fist, left palm technique. But now, that thought had changed in an instant. If Mok Jianan had truly made Mu Zhangyak's technique his own in a flash after seeing it just once, then she might be witnessing a tremendous genius that appears only once every few centuries. Swoosh! Hang Yuriang glanced at Shadow Master. Shadow Master also appeared greatly astonished, his mouth slightly agape, unable to take his eyes off Mok Jianan. Who wouldn't be amazed upon seeing this? At this, her eyes sparkled strangely. In the bet, she had already practically lost. However, that no longer mattered. Mok Jianan. Originally, she had no interest in the male students, and had come only with the intention of taking Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall. But now, that thought had completely changed. Letting go of such immense talent was out of the question. Could this ultimately be a good thing? Since she had lost the bet, she could use that as a pretext to concede the Demon Fire Hall's woman to Shadow Master, and take this monstrous fellow instead, which would be far more advantageous. As this was happening, the tide of the battle noticeably shifted. Bam bam bam! Ugh! The sword techniques executed by Mok Jianan's right hand struck the acupoints of Mu Zhangyak's left chest, the 6 roots, 1, sun and moon, Iowul, and the small C acupoint, Sohi point, on his left arm, causing Mu Zhangyak's body to stagger and be pushed to the side. The variations in the sword techniques are too intense. While the fist techniques wielded by his left hand were simple and sturdy, making them easy to block, the sword techniques executed by his right hand were diverse in their variations, causing Mu Zhangyak to miss 3 moves. This monstrous guy! Mu Zhangyak was genuinely dumbfounded. He had initially thought that Mok Jianan's right fist, left palm technique might be a temporary strategy to catch him off guard. After all, wielding different techniques with each hand required not only splitting one's thoughts but also a special chi circulation method, which Mok Jianan couldn't have possibly mastered. However, bam 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 bam! The techniques Mok Jianan displayed with both hands were by no means empty moves. He was truly executing different techniques. At this rate I'll lose. Mu Zhangyak, sensing the unfavorable situation, attempted to create distance. His mind was becoming too scattered. Normally, when employing the right fist, left palm technique, the opponent would become flustered and fail to respond to both techniques simultaneously. But with Mok Jianan also wielding the right fist, left palm, the exchange of techniques had grown complicated. It's dizzying. Even Mu Zhangyak, the originator, felt dizzy. Thus, tap 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 tap. Mu Zhangyak utilized the lightness skill to try and create as much distance from Mok Jianan as possible. However, Mok Jianan wouldn't miss this opportunity. Where are you going? Bam! Mok Jianan unleashed his body towards Mu Zhangyak without hesitation. TSK. Realizing it was futile, Mu Zhangyak gathered chi in the soles of his feet and stomped on the ground with his toes. Boom! Crack! The ground of the plaza shattered, and rock fragments shot upwards. The fragments, infused with chi, became dozens of small projectiles flying towards Mok Jianan. Naturally, he had no choice but to evade them. However, in that fleeting moment, swoosh! Mok Jianan bent his knees backward and leaned his waist back, sliding across the ground as if to avoid the fragments. No way! How did he think to dodge by lowering his posture backward like that? His waist and leg strength were no joke. While it was impressive to evade in such an acrobatic manner, dodging like this would inevitably create a critical opening. Foolish. You've made a mistake. Bam! Not missing this chance, Mu Zhangyak twisted his body, leaping forward, and attempted to strike Mok Jianan's abdomen with a vicious palm strike. It was at that very instant. Bam 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 bam! Erg! Mu Zhangyak had thought that in this posture, Mok Jianan would have a blind spot and be unable to respond immediately. However, the moment he was about to deliver the palm strike, Mok Jianan's body, which was almost lying down backward, spun sideways, repeatedly striking Mu Zhangyak's jaw with foot techniques. How in this posture? Thud. Unable to contain his shock, Mu Zhengyak fell backward. Phew! Mok Jianlun got up and looked at the fallen Mu Zhengyak. It seemed that having been hit in the jaw and face consecutively, his brain had been shaken, causing him to lose consciousness. The fifth move of the profound mystic foot technique, the whirlwind kick, too, quite useful. It wasn't a technique meant to be used in this way, but when the posture was unbalanced, employing it could effectively draw out the opponent's carelessness. Jeong Ryung's martial arts were indeed worthy of being called supreme. At that moment, Jeong Ryung's voice reached Mok Jianlun's ears. You must have been quite eager to end it quickly. You think I wouldn't know? You added more power to the last move, didn't you? Ah, I've been caught. Mok Jianlun scratched his head. The original plan was to determine the victor using only techniques within the peak realm. However, while executing the whirlwind kick, he had increased the power he typically used from 20% to 30% in the final move. Well, isn't this still enough? He hadn't done anything that would expose his true abilities. Most of the leaders beside the platform were supreme masters of the transcendent realm, so to avoid revealing his actual strength to them, he had limited his power to 20% during the fight. Moreover, there were several instances where Mok Jianlun had noticed openings in Mu Zhengyak's defense but had let them slide. Don't let your guard down. If the crowd realizes that you've already reached the transcendent realm, they will go beyond recognizing your talent and start to be wary of you. Yes. I'll keep that in mind. Wasn't that why he was controlling his strength? Otherwise, Mu Zhengyak would have been lying on the ground long ago. Controlling his power while fighting seemed to have been the right decision. Thanks to that, I learned something interesting. As Mok Jianlun reached the transcendent realm, he could see the opponent's chi more clearly. Although not in great detail, he could roughly discern how Mu Zhengyak's chi circulation was structured. Interestingly, Mu Zhengyak's lower danjian was divided into two. It could be considered a unique form, which likely allowed him to execute different techniques with one body. Mok Jianlun applied this by drawing out some of the death chi from his middle danjian to wield different techniques. It's quite useful. If utilized well, it seemed convenient when fighting opponents of similar levels. In any case, had he achieved his objective to this extent? The goal in the final gate was to impress upon the observing leaders that he possessed exceptional talent, while only displaying the peak realm. This should be sufficient, right? Of course, Mok Jianlun's intentions were conveyed. He had firmly imprinted his talent in the minds of the observing leaders. However, beyond that, a small confrontation was unfolding among the leaders on the platform. Brother Sun, it seems I'll have to take that Mok Jianlun kid as my disciple. At the words of one Byung-hak, the Thunderbolt Fist King, Sun Yun, the Bright Blade King, raised an eyebrow and replied. What are you saying? Didn't you just say you had chosen the child from the esoteric realm gate? I said I was considering it. But, no. Let me be honest. If I miss out on that child in today's closing ceremony, I feel like I'll regret it for a while. Is it acceptable for someone who has received the title of king to speak with a forked tongue? Ha! I said I had the child from the esoteric realm gate in mind. When did I ever definitively state that I would take that child no matter what? And respectable brother Sun, you already have many excellent disciples, so why are you being greedy here? Greedy? Did you just accuse me of being greedy? If this isn't greed, then what is it? Before they knew it, the atmosphere between them had become quite hostile. Oh my! Li Jeong, the corpse Blood Valley master, felt perplexed. He needed to announce the end of the first duel, but the sudden confrontation between these two kings made it difficult. Chapter 114, Disciple Scramble, 1. This is troublesome. Li Jeong, the corpse Blood Valley master, had intended to ascend the platform and announce the end of the duel. However, he had not expected a situation where the two most influential upper echelon members among the 5 kings would engage in a confrontation. I understand their intentions, but they went too far. Li Jeong clicked his tongue inwardly as he glanced at Mok Jianlun. In fact, he too had been unable to conceal his astonishment upon witnessing Mok Jeong replicating the profound principles of Mu Zhengyak's right fist, left palm technique in a single attempt during their duel. If it weren't for the fact that he knew his liege was possessing the boy, he would have been desperate to accept him as a disciple due to his innate martial talent, just like the others. In any case, to ensure smooth progression, he needed to intervene in their confrontation. Ahem. You too. However, just as he was about to speak, Shadow Master's voice came from the left side. Ho ho ho. I apologize for interrupting your conversation, but would it be alright if I said a word? As Shadow Master stepped in as if to mediate, the two kings, whose emotions were about to escalate, simultaneously turned their gazes towards him. Among them, the more belligerent one, Sun Yun, the Bright Blade King, spoke in a somewhat sharp tone. What do you wish to say? It is nothing more than a remark, wondering if there is a need for you two esteemed individuals to damage your sentiments over a single talent in this gathering. Under normal circumstances, they would have quickly come to their senses upon hearing these words. However, this time was an exception. Passing all the gates of the Corpse Blood Valley meant that most of the qualities a martial artist should possess had been verified, and it signified that they possessed fierce survival skills as well. Not only that, but reaching the peak realm at the age of 17 and possessing innate martial talent to the extent of being able to replicate profound principles that even transcendent realm supreme masters couldn't casually attempt after witnessing them just once. Who would want to let go of such an individual? I understand what you are trying to say, Shadow Master, but this is a matter between the Thunderbolt Fist King and myself, so please do not interfere. Sun Yun, the Bright Blade King, issued a strong warning. On the other hand, one Byung Hak, the Thunderbolt Fist King, remained silent. It wasn't due to his gentlemanly nature, but because he had visited Shadow Master the previous night and requested him not to touch the child from the esoteric realm gate. Ahem. He had resolved to be shameless, considering that he couldn't afford to let go of such a talent, but naturally, he had to be mindful of the situation. Fortunately, he hadn't made such a request to the Bright Blade King, but he could only hope that Shadow Master wouldn't bring it up. At that moment, Shadow Master smiled and spoke. However, what is the point of you two deciding who will take the talent here? At those words, one of Sun Yun's eyebrows raised. Could it be that Shadow Master was also intending to participate in this talent scramble? With that, Sun Yun spoke in a warning tone. Don't tell me you're also after that child. Ah, no. That's not what I meant. What I'm saying is that it would be futile for you two to engage in this debate if we follow the rules of the closing ceremony. Futile? What do you mean by that? Shadow Master pointed at Mok Jeong with his hand and spoke to the two puzzled kings. Although it's difficult to confirm without witnessing the duels of the other students, if that student were to pass the final gate as the top ranker. He trailed off, but everyone understood Shadow Master's implication. Come to think of it, with that level of martial talent, the probability of him passing the final gate as the top ranker was significantly high. If that were to happen, the choice would lie with the student. In the end, the debate over who would accept Mok Jeong as a disciple might become entirely futile. That's right. It's pointless for us to argue. Unlike those who agreed with Shadow Master's words, Hang Yuriang, the Valley Master of the Summoning Sound Valley, glanced at Mok Jeong with twinkling eyes. Mok Jeong sat on the ground, his arms crossed, watching the next duel. The next duel was between Mo Harang of the Demon Fire Hall, ranked 3rd, and Yun Muang of the Esoteric Realm Gate, ranked 4th. They were already engaged in a fierce battle. The confrontation between Mo Harang, who specialized in the swift assassination blade technique, and Yun Muang, who wielded the iron fist based on the external martial art known as the iron string technique, was quite intriguing. Should it be called a battle of lightness and heaviness? Bam 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 bam. As their chi consumption was still low and their stamina was sufficient, the duel between the two was evenly matched. However, judging solely by their fighting styles, it seemed that Mo Harang, who prioritized swiftness, would tire out faster than Yun Muang, as her movements were 2 to 3 times faster than his. as he was observing the duel. Who do you think will win? Jeong Ryung asked. Without any hesitation, Mok Jae-un muttered quietly in response. Mo Harang. Ho. Your discernment has improved quite a bit. She shared the same opinion as Mok Jae-un. At a glance, one might think that Yun Muung, who was moving in a composed manner while employing the iron fist, would have an advantage as time passed, but the difference in their skill levels was evident. In Mok Jae-un's eyes, despite exchanging over 20 moves, Yun Muung still couldn't keep up with Mo Harang's movements, while she was gradually attacking his weak points. This alone indicated that Mo Harang was a step above Yun Muung. Damn it! As Mok Jae-un had predicted, Yun Muung was gradually becoming impatient. Yun Muung, whose iron string technique had only reached the 7th stage, had 3 vulnerable areas. They were his face, armpits, and ankles. When the iron string technique reached its pinnacle, the entire body would become as hard as rock, resolving most of the weak points. However, Yun Muung still had vulnerabilities. Bam! Hiss! At some point, one of Mo Harang's daggers had penetrated the area near his armpit, one of his weak points. Yun Muung, who had been firmly holding his ground, finally employed footwork and retreated. With this, she could be certain. Found it. An incomplete external martial art inevitably had weak spots. Now that she had found them, she could make her move. You're finished. Clang! Crack! As she released the dagger from her hand, the silver thread connected to it moved like a living snake, chasing after Yun Muung, who was trying to create distance. It persistently targeted his armpit, tormenting Yun Muung. Damn it! Enraged, Yun Muung tried to strike down the silver thread, but it entangled and coiled around his arm like a spider's web. Seeing this, Mok Jae-un chuckled. The outcome would soon be determined. Being at a higher level than himself and having his weak points exposed, it would be difficult for Yun Muung to endure. At that moment, Yong-jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave, or rather, the evil spirit possessing him, approached Mok Jae-un and whispered in a low voice. My lord! What should we do? The evil spirit glanced at someone. It was Mok Yucheon. Although he knew that Mok Jae-un didn't have any particular feelings towards him, they were ostensibly brothers, so he was asking how to handle the situation. Without much contemplation, Mok Jae-un replied. Confront him at the level of the body's owner. Understood. The evil spirit occupying Yeonga's body could display greater martial prowess, but doing so might unnecessarily draw attention, so there was no need for that. Besides, with the evil spirit's skill, even at Yeonga's level, it would not be difficult to defeat Mok Yucheon. The experience of his previous life could not be ignored. At that moment, gasp! Mu Jangyak, who had been lying unconscious beside them, woke up. Upon waking up, he struggled to regulate his breathing, sitting up and coughing. Cough, cough. Seeing him like this, Mok Yucheon approached and spoke. Jangyak. Are you all right? Cough, cough. I am fine. After coughing a few more times, Mu Jangyak finally managed to catch his breath and raised his head. Then, with a bitter look in his eyes, he opened his mouth. As expected. I lost. You fought well enough. Mok Yucheon spoke in a regretful tone. He wanted to console him in a way that could lift his spirits, but there was no way to do so. Not only had he reached the pinnacle stage of peak realm, but he had even mastered the profound technique of the right fist, left palm technique, which even peerless masters couldn't replicate. Yet he had still lost. His opponent had perfectly recreated his own technique after witnessing it only once. The opponent was simply the worst. Mok Jae-un. What on earth are you? He had thought that something had changed about him since the Yun Mok Sword manner, but this was a completely different level of existence. Even he, who was called a genius, felt a sense of inferiority compared to Mok Jae-un's martial talent. That fellow was a monster in itself. Phew! At that moment, Mu Jangyak struggled to stand up. Mok Yucheon tried to stop him. Don't push yourself. Sit down and circulate your chi. You must be quite dizzy after being hit in the jaw and face. The fact that he had woken up this quickly was already remarkable. Despite Ma Qiuqiu's suggestion, Mu Zhengyak shook his head, saying he was fine, and then got up and approached Ma Qiuqiu. Ma Qiuqiu looked at him with puzzlement. Was he doing this because he couldn't accept the outcome of the duel? Thinking that a dispute might occur, Ma Qiuqiu approached to intervene. Plop! However, Mu Zhengyak sat down next to Ma Qiuqiu and spoke in a low voice. I lost. No, I lost to you. As promised, my lord. Ah, no. I think you used the wrong form of address. At Ma Qiuqiu's words, Mu Zhengyak's cheeks trembled, and then, I will serve you as my master. Please forgive me for not being able to properly show my loyalty in front of the leaders and their watchful eyes. Ma Qiuqiu, who had intended to intervene in case a dispute broke out, couldn't hide his bewilderment upon hearing their conversation. Master? What was this about? Why was Mu Zhengyak addressing Ma Qiuqiu as his master and submitting to him in such a humiliating manner? Could it be related to the promise they had mentioned earlier? As he was puzzled, Ma Qiuqiu looked at him with a smile and pointed his finger at a certain location. It was the training ground in the center of the plaza where the duel was taking place. Ah! Looking over there, the outcome of the duel had been determined. Ha! Ha! I lost. Yun Muong of the Esoteric Realm Gate, holding his blood-soaked right armpit, knelt on one knee in front of Mo Harang's dagger, acknowledging his defeat. This meant that it was now Ma Qiuqiu's turn to duel. Although he was curious about what had transpired between those two, he had to prepare for the duel first. TSK. Ma Qiuqiu turned his body, intending to leave. At that moment, good luck. Yes, master. Upon hearing the voice of Jeong Jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave addressing Ma Qiuqiu as master, Ma Qiuqiu froze in place. What was going on? He knew that person had been accompanying Ma Qiuqiu for some time, but master? Wasn't that a form of address typically used by slaves or servants? With that, Ma Qiuqiu turned around and spoke to Ma Qiuqiu in a dumbfounded tone. What have you done? What do you mean by that? Why are they calling you their master? What exactly have you done to them? In response to Ma Qiuqiu's question, Ma Qiuqiu chuckled and replied, I didn't do anything special. What do you mean you didn't do anything special? Then why are they addressing you as their master or whatever? Ma Qiuqiu! At that moment, the voice of Li Jeong, the Corpse Blood Valley Master, resounded. Ma Qiuqiu bit his lip and turned around, walking towards the center of the plaza. While dealing with that fellow here in the Corpse Blood Valley, he had realized his devilish true colors. There was no doubt that he had played some trick. At that moment, he saw Mo Harang, who had won the duel, walking back to where the students were. Considering their friendship from being in the same team during the flag contest, Ma Qiuqiu spoke. Congratulations on your victory. Thanks. Step. As they approached each other, Ma Qiuqiu warned in a whisper. Stay away from that Ma Qiuqiu. I don't know what trick he played, but it seems like he's making the students around him serve him as their master. He was telling her this out of a sense of camaraderie, as they had been on the same team. However, that advice. It's already too late. Upon hearing Mo Harang's voice as she passed by, Ma Qiuqiu's expression stiffened. So, she was also serving Ma Qiuqiu as her master? Ma Qiuqiu turned his head and looked at Ma Qiuqiu with trembling eyes. Despite being brought here as a hostage, what the hell are you up to in this place? Thus, the duel between Ma Qiuqiu and the evil spirit possessing Jeong Jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave began. As he was observing the duel, a voice echoed in Ma Qiuqiu's ears. Hello? Ma Qiuqiu slightly furrowed his brows. What was this? This wasn't Chongrion's voice. The sound penetrated his ears, but it wasn't reverberating around him. It sounded as if someone was whispering directly into his ear. Ma Qiuqiu's eyes narrowed as he lightly scanned his surroundings. Where did that voice come from? At that moment, a chuckle was heard. At that moment, As Mok Jeong was raising his vigilance, he detected the faint form of internal energy carried along with the reverberating vibration of the incoming sound. Swish! Mok Jeong turned his head and looked at Heng Yuriang, the Valley Master of the Summoning Sound Valley, who was sitting as a spectator beside the platform. Ha! At this, a glimmer of admiration flashed in her eyes. Ah, yes! That fellow truly exceeded her imagination. When infusing internal energy into sound from a distance, it was difficult to discern who had spoken and pinpoint their location. Yet he had instantly found her from this distance. I must have him, indeed. He was not someone she could afford to concede. Chapter 115, Disciple Scramble 2. At this distance, when infusing internal energy into sound, it was difficult to discern who had spoken and pinpoint their location. However, surprisingly, Mok Jeong had found her after just 2 attempts. A mere brat who had merely reached the peak realm possessed such keen perception. Heng Yuriang, the Valley Master of the Summoning Sound Valley, clicked her tongue and smacked her lips. A strong sense of desire arose within her. How can I concede something like this? Even if most of the leaders were after him, she had no intention of yielding whatsoever. No, their opinions didn't matter anyway. There was only one thing to consider. It was a matter of successfully enticing Mok Jeong. Heng Yuriang looked at Mok Jeong and spoke again, infusing internal energy into her voice. You're quite something. To find me instantly like that. At her words, Mok Jeong's eyes narrowed. He had simply looked at the center of the rippling energy waves, and his guess had been correct. However, how did she do it? Without moving her lips? The sound was echoing in his ears. As he was puzzled, Heng Yuriang said to Mok Jeong, "Why are you surprised?" Rather than being surprised, he found it intriguing. The method of transmitting sound over such a distance using qi seemed quite useful. Should it be said that it appeared suitable for secretly speaking to someone? Are you curious about how it's done? There was no way he wouldn't be curious. Mok Jeong lightly nodded his head. Then, shall I teach you? She suddenly offered to teach him this? Mok Jeong looked at her with puzzlement. Mok Jeong believed that everything had a corresponding price, so he thought there was no way that woman would teach him such a thing with pure intentions. It's quite fascinating, but not knowing it won't cause any inconvenience. With that, Mok Jeong chuckled and turned his head away. Heng Yuriang slightly furrowed her brows. She had tried to pique his interest, but she hadn't expected him to refuse so readily. What an interesting kid. She hadn't demanded any compensation and had simply offered to teach him, yet this was the first time she had seen someone instantly end their displayed interest like that. Because of that, she became even more intrigued. Thus, she continued, the essence of sound techniques is to create vibrations in the air through sound. This can be considered a similar principle. What was this? He hadn't agreed to learn it, but as she explained the principle, one of Mok Jeong's eyebrows slightly raised. Regardless, Heng Yuriang continued her explanation. Imagine touching cotton with your qi between your vocal cords and the root of your tongue at the Yanquan acupoint, 1, generating internal energy, and quickly creating vibrations. And then, even if he didn't want to listen, the continuous sound made it impossible for him not to understand the method. Moreover, surprisingly, the method wasn't very difficult. A clever kid like you should be able to do it sufficiently with this level of explanation, right? At her words, Mok Jeong slightly tilted his head to the side. Then, looking at Heng Yuriang, he followed her instructions, sending internal energy to the Yanquan acupoint, and tried it once. Is this how it's done? Correct. Upon hearing his voice, Heng Yuriang slightly raised the corners of her mouth. He was indeed intelligent. Even if the execution seemed easy, comprehending and performing it in one attempt was not a simple feat. He possessed the sharpness to grasp the principles that easily. He's a delightful child to teach. At that moment, Mok Jeong asked her. It's impressive. What is this technique called? The monks of Shaolin refer to it as the intention-sealing voice transmission, but the Valley Master, and those who study sound techniques call it the secret voice transmission. In short, it's also referred to as voice transmission. Voice transmission. Is this a technique that others cannot hear? That's right. It's a technique truly suitable for having secret conversations, like between you and me. Isn't it nice? Yes, it is. It certainly seemed like a useful technique. Using very faint chi to create vibrations and transmit sound. He had no particular desire to learn it, but since she had taught him on her own accord, it would likely come in handy. As they were conversing, she transmitted a message to him. I watched your duel, and it was truly magnificent. Thank you. Originally, the Valley Master had come to take a female disciple, but it was a duel that made me change my mind. At her words, Mok Jeong chuckled inwardly. She was openly revealing her intentions. As expected, there was a purpose behind teaching him this technique. Hearing you say that, I'm at a loss for words. Child, let me be direct. Become this Valley Master's disciple. Such opportunities are rare. Hang Yuryang, the Valley Master of the Summoning Sound Valley, blatantly proposed for him to become her disciple. In fact, her proposal was indeed a rare occurrence. The final gate hadn't even ended yet, and the closing ceremony hadn't taken place, so approaching a student and persuading them to become a disciple was something that wouldn't happen unless they were exceptionally fond of them. However, the problem was that Mok Jeong himself had no intention whatsoever of becoming the Valley Master of the Summoning Sound Valley's disciple. Mok Jeong transmitted a message with a regretful expression. Oh my, what should I do? I am truly grateful for the Valley Master's offer, but I need more time to consider it. He expressed it politely since she had taught him something. It was essentially no different from a refusal. At this, Hang Yuryang let out a small snort. Do you think you can escape from this Valley Master? She had already made up her mind to accept Mok Jeong as her disciple. Therefore, she was determined to make him beg her to accept him as a disciple, using whatever means necessary. If you're considering the two kings, I'd like to tell you that it's a foolish choice. A foolish choice? Bright Blade King's son Yun already has 4 disciples and a designated successor. If you were to join them, do you think you'd be able to fully showcase your talent? Is that so? From the looks of it, you must have thought of choosing Thunderbolt Fist King in mind. But do you know this? What are you referring to? The Thunderbolt Fist King's only disciple became crippled in his right arm while learning his secret techniques. At her words, Mok Jeong stroked his chin. In fact, he hadn't chosen anyone yet. Originally, he had his sights set on Baek Saha, the Poison Annihilation King, but since he didn't attend as a spectator, his original plan had been disrupted. However, if what Hang Yuryang said was true, becoming a disciple of the two kings might turn out to be quite troublesome. Internal competition or the risk of martial arts? Whichever it was, it became unpleasant to choose. However, this information was ultimately Hang Yuryang's attempt to exclude these two individuals. Therefore, Mok Jeong considered it as information to be referenced, nothing more, nothing less. Yes, I will keep the Valley Master's advice in mind. At Mok Jeong's words, which seemed to draw a line, she tapped her fingers on the chair. This kid seemed to be more stubborn than he appeared. If it weren't for the final gate or the closing ceremony, she would have wanted to forcibly take him away and reshape his mental state to her liking. However, the most troublesome person was right across the platform. Bright Blade King Sun Yun. He was someone who interfered and obstructed her affairs at every turn. But now, that time was not far off. Once she reached the 7th stage, the pinnacle of the sound wave transmission technique, no one would be able to stand against her, except for the 2 among the 5 kings who had attained the realm of awakening. Even the Bright Blade King was no exception. Thus, she decided to change her approach and try to coax and persuade Mok Jeong this time. Do you know why this Valley Master only wanted to accept female disciples? This valley has always accepted mostly female disciples, except in truly special cases. And it's not limited to disciples. The majority of those in my valley are women. If you become this Valley Master's disciple, You'll be able to enjoy the feeling of being the first emperor of the Apang Palace, too. Doesn't it tempt you? I apologize. Mok Jeong flatly refused her temptation. Look at this brat. He should be at an age where his blood was boiling, yet he even rejected such a proposal? At this sight, Heng Yuriang's annoyance started to rise, going beyond his stubbornness. Originally, she had a whimsical temperament, and didn't engage in persuading others or such acts. If she liked something, she would forcibly take it, that's all. If he keeps responding like this. Her patience was reaching its limit, but she decided to endure it one last time. From what I can see, you seem to be learning sword techniques. In that case, wouldn't it be even better to become this Valley Master's disciple? What do you mean by that? The Bright Blade King and the Shadow Master are masters of blade techniques, and the Thunderbolt Fist King, as his title suggests, is a master of the Thunderstrike Fist. However, judging from the duel, it seems that what you primarily trained in is sword techniques. She considered Mok Jeong's sword techniques to be more refined than his fist techniques during the duel. In that regard, she deduced that Mok Jeong had mainly practiced sword techniques. At that moment, Mok Jeong spoke. As far as I know, the Valley Master is primarily skilled in sound techniques. While that is certainly true, the Valley Master is also a master of the sword, comparable to my own sound techniques. I can confidently say that if you learn the striking sword technique, 3, one of my valley's legacies, you will reach an even higher realm of swordsmanship. Striking sword technique? Did she also have proficiency in sword techniques? However, there was one fact that Heng Yuriang was unaware of. Mok Jeong smiled and said, I am grateful for your words, but I don't necessarily have to focus on sword techniques. Although she didn't know, Mok Jeong hadn't devoted himself solely to the sword. He was prepared to learn whatever he deemed necessary. However, Mok Jeong's response ultimately angered Heng Yuriang. TSK. This Valley Master is offering such a proposal, yet he keeps arrogantly refusing. If carrots didn't work, then the answer was the whip. In fact, that was more convenient for her. This Valley Master is holding you in such high regard and trying to accept you as a disciple, yet you are being utterly arrogant. Very well. In that case, I'll have to accept that Mok Yucheon brat who is currently engaged in a duel as a subordinate of my valley. Mok Yucheon? Mok Yucheon and the evil spirit possessing Jeong Jie from the Vermilion Slaughter Cave were in the midst of a fierce duel at the training ground in the center of the plaza. They were almost evenly matched. Most of the leaders were also watching their duel with interest. I heard that the child is your younger brother, right? Before the duel, when one Byung-hak, the Thunderbolt Fist King, learned that the two shared the same surname, Mok, he had asked if they were siblings. In response, Lee Ji-young, the Corpse Blood Valley Master, deemed it acceptable to reveal that information and confirmed it. That was how she knew about it. Yes, that's correct. I see. That child also seems quite useful. Don't you think? If he's such a useful talent, I should accept him as a subordinate, play with him for a while, and then kill him when I lose interest. At her words, Mok Jeong couldn't help but chuckle. As he continued to express his refusal, she was now blatantly threatening him. Although she spoke indirectly, she was threatening to take his younger brother as a subordinate, and kill him if Mok Jeong didn't become her disciple. Try refusing again this time. She twitched her lips and looked at Mok Jeong with malicious eyes. Considering that both siblings had made it to this stage, they must have relied on each other while passing through the gates. In that case, their brotherly bond should be deep. If you don't want to let your younger brother die, obediently become the Valley Master's disciple. Do as you please. Suddenly, upon hearing Mok Jeong's transmitted voice echoing in her ears, her expression, which had been twitching her lips venomously, stiffened. What did he mean by doing as she pleased? For a moment she doubted her own ears. Heng Yuriang spoke in a voice mixed with anger. You must think that this Valley Master wouldn't actually do it. She was someone who followed through on her words. How dare a mere student not listen to her words and respond in such a manner? Fine. Then she would truly show him. It's all your own doing. Let's see if you can remain so composed after losing your younger brother. Yes, yes. Do as you please. Ha! You can kill him, I don't mind, and you can even dismember him and turn him into a cripple after playing with him. After all, that's the Valley Master's decision for the subordinate you're taking in. What? If my younger brother can make the Valley Master happy even in such a way, that would be quite fortunate. TSK. He says that with a smile on his face. Suddenly, rather than her anger rising, she was left dumbfounded. What was wrong with that brat? Although there was a distance between them, as someone who had reached the transcendent realm, she could see Mok Jianlun's face to a certain extent. How could he smile and say it was fine to kill his younger brother or turn him into a cripple? It wasn't an expression of pretending to be composed while scheming something. His face truly seemed to convey that he didn't mind. Is that kid really in his right mind?